It's what we're taught.
It's tough. It's complicated. The 5D stuff really throws a whole loop. On a serious note, it's actually, we are learning nowadays that the increasing amount of obesity around the world now is probably down to just like mostly one thing, which is curious. And when I tell you this one thing, you might have a similar reaction to many other people that hear it, where they're like, no, yeah. So here it is. Over time, specifically after roughly the 1950s and moving up in an exponentially increasing curve, what you could call the price palatability of food has skyrocketed. You can also use accessibility palatability, convenience palatability. What does that mean? A bunch of science terms. I don't know. And that's all I had memorized. I'm really nervous and I have no idea where I am. So basically, for how much it costs, for how easy it is to access, for how little time you need to spend working to get it in both at work for your job, they give you money, you go buy food, and for like, I have to make food or get food now, how long is it going to take me to get the food I want? Is it going to be like I have to slave over a hot stove for 2 hours? Or is it going to be like I just drive over to the, what do you guys have here in Austin as a grocery store?
Oh, Buc-ee's is the
Buc-ee's.
There,
Buc-ee's.
the gas station?
Oh, well, I'm not going to the gas station to get your dinner. My God. I knew it was a low-class podcast. I'll have my butler see me out. But, so yeah, perfect example. Buc-ee's is the quintessential example. I drive over to Buc-ee's. It's 2 minutes away. And for what functionally for the average income in the United States amounts to almost no money, you can buy an inordinate amount of high-calorie food that is the most convenient and the most tasty by a long shot that has ever been. So we are swimming in an environment where incredibly convenient, incredibly cheap, incredibly easy to access, super wide variety, insanely, amazingly tasting food is almost ubiquitously available to all of us, or almost everyone. And people really, I know this is going to sound crazy, people really love to eat super tasty food, and most people care about the calorie density of that food and long-term what it's doing to their bodies only to some nominal amount. Like if someone's like, hey, like, what do you think about the Ukraine-Russia situation? You'd be like, what's terrible? Worse, terrible. They're like, what are you doing about it specifically? You're like, I don't know. My taxes go to NATO, and NATO makes sure that Russia doesn't do anything else bad. Maybe something like that. So when you catch people at a Thai restaurant or catch people Grubhubbing Thai food on their phone after a long day of work, you're not going to be like, hey, like, what, really, peanut sauce? And they're like, it's delicious. And you're like, but it goes straight to here. And they're like, yeah, no, for sure, but I'll do fitness or something. And it turns out that the amount of calories you can pack on that through tasty, super tasty food is like, waka. But the amount of exercise and physical activity and resistance training, everything you'd have to do to quote unquote burn that off, I mean, gee whiz, it's really hard to do. If you think about, like, you go to McDonald's, get a regular meal, combo meal or whatever, it's like over 1,000 calories, 1,000 to 1,500 calories, sort of minimum. The amount of exercise extra per day or physical activity it takes to burn 1,250 calories, I mean, we're talking about running, like jogging, for real, with your 80s headband and your tunes, a Walkman perhaps to make it dated. Hours, like 5 hours of running. Nobody doing that. And so basically, human beings have a set of wants, and you know this from the business world. The supply and demand is such a beautiful concept because it distills down to so much about what we do. Humans demand in the sense of have money, am able and willing to pay for very super tasty food, and super tasty food, you just kind of want to eat it all the time. And everyone really has that pull to some extent. And so what we can tell is the biggest factor of who's getting super obese and who's not is probably just people's largely genetically determined baseline hunger signaling and food pleasure response. Do you ever have friends that are like, they'll eat, like you'll go to sushi with them and they're like, oh my God, I'm starving. And you're like, okay, sushi. If you get sushi, they have like a roll and a half and they're like, oh, that's it. And you're like, what? I'd have to be here all day. They would have to get the police to kick me out. If like, I can drink the oil, the whole thing. Some of us just like food a lot more than others. And that is the primary cause. Now, back in the 1920s, let's say you liked food a lot. What was you going to do about it? Nothing. You're going to go to the nickel and dime store, get a can of beans. You don't just keep eating beans. So there's that concept of palatability. Here's the thing. So
if you can't tell by me starting a podcast, I love talking to friends about how they made their millions, helping business owners and normal humans solve their problems. Fulfilling. And I love sharing these on the internet because then you and we learn together. And hopefully it helps you. But when I can't meet in person, there's one tool I use, Riverside. So Riverside ensures I can talk to someone anywhere in the world and record it in 4K resolution. So the video quality matches the quality of the people. Riverside records separate audio and video tracks so we can easily cut out those awkward interruptions that I know are not my favorite part of interviews. But if you're not into the detailed editing, Riverside's still got you covered. They have in-platform editing software that gets this, edits based off a 99% accurate AI transcription. And if that's not simple enough, they take AI one step further with their show notes that summarizes your content into an SEO optimized description and chapters, all automatic. So you can use Riverside for podcast interviews, panel discussions, presentations, webinars, and more. And best of all, it's simple because I don't have time for complex. I love technology, and I got you guys a deal. Try Riverside for yourself with the link in description and use the code Cody for an exclusive discount.
Food corporations, anyone who sells you food, it can be the local hipster mom and pop diner, retro place in Austin, all the way up to PepsiCo. They know that if they make their foods tastier, and they know that if they make their foods tastier in such a way that you just want to keep eating more, that's what you want. That's what seems to make you happy. They're just going to do that. So back before a lot of processed foods were made, and not even processed, just really well-prepared foods, convenience foods. Nowadays, you go to Costco or Sam's Club, and there's that rotisserie chicken. It's already done. It's amazing. It's $5. I didn't even understand the price economics of that. How do they afford that? It must be cross-subsidized or something. Right. Yeah. But that is not even processed food. I mean, it's technically whole food, but it's so delicious and it's so convenient. Back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, if you wanted to really gorge yourself on amazing, fun foods, you'd have to have an Italian grandmother or several in your home preparing food. And all those videos about how food prep used to happen. Hours and hours to make lasagna or to make any kind of special dinner. Nowadays, it's minutes. And in order to have really, really good food in the 1930s, you'd have to be living pretty large. Poor people, middle-income people, they had to kind of subsist on food that was annoying to make. But if you wanted it convenient, it was just not going to taste really good. Imagine taking a completely unflavored cut of not-so-great steak and some just buckwheat that you boiled and put that together and eat up. Awesome. How much really is anyone going to get? Do people overeat that? And the answer is some small fraction of people whose food drive genetically is just outrageous will actually overeat that, which is why we still saw obesity in the 20s and 30s in America. Very small fractions. Now, as over time, the ease, convenience, cost per work hour that you put into your life, and taste of food all go that way, more and more people, regular food drive people, start to fall under the curve of you're going to want to eat the stuff all the time, Cheetos and stuff. You ever have one Cheeto? Nobody does that. You just want to keep having it. Now, of course, you get full at some point, but at that point, you've drained 800 calories or something, and you're oh, very well. And then a couple hours later, you're hungry again. You do the same thing. And so the insane availability, insane in a very good way, by the way, of super amazingly tasting foods and people being just categorically way more wealthy on average is the thing. You can see this live occurring, that what happened to us in the 70s and 80s in Mexico right now. I went to Mexico on vacation for the first time in 1998, and almost everyone was either thin or normal-ish looking. And then I went back with my wife and some friends 2 years ago, and holy crap, there are a lot, very charitably, there are a lot of people in Mexico that are enormous, America enormous. I'm are you guys from Texas? And so how is this possible? Well, Mexico's income per capita is now similar to what the U.S. income per capita was in the 1960s. It's no longer accurate to call Mexico a third world country or a poor country. Almost no one there is poor. Food insecurity is an incredibly unlikely thing in Mexico, and most people have enough disposable income to buy all the fun foods they want. And guess what people do when they have money and they like to eat fun foods? They buy fun foods and they eat them. That really is the core of the obesity epidemic, and also another reason why new medications like Ozempic, tirzepatide, etc., Mounjaro, all those things, why they are some of the only things to really take a big chunk out of obesity is because they take your whatever genetic food drive and palatability drive you have, how much you want to eat, and they lower it based on how much of the drug you take. Now, at some point you take enough drug, the side effects are so terrible, you're like, this isn't worth it. But for many people, there's a point at which the side effects aren't terrible yet, but they just don't really want to eat food as much as they used to, or they still do, but they turn into that girl from earlier. They have 3 pieces of sushi, they're like, oh my God, I'm so full. And you're like, what? And so if there was some kind of mysterious cause for obesity, how could these medications, which really predominantly work just by lowering your hunger levels and food drive, how could they possibly work to kibosh obesity? But they're doing it.
It's so interesting because, these days, if you were to say to a lot of people, well, just eat less calories, they would be like, well, it's also the seed oils. And haven't you heard that it's also, like you said, sort of this giant geometric blob of institutions that are incentivized to make you fat, essentially. But when you explain it that way, it makes it so much simpler. So do you think that we'll use the word Ozempic just because it's more normative, but do you think that Ozempic is actually good for society and good for our obesity rates?
Incredible. I think it's a miracle drug. And I think because it's technically it's a 3rd generation GLP drug, but 4th gen is tirzepatide. It's already on the market. Mounjaro, fewer side effects, bigger primary effect. There are 5th gen drugs currently in FDA approval process, which make Ozempic look like a starter pack version of this. And so we're just at the beginning of this crazy drug revolution where if you have a problem with your appetite and you're overeating, very soon there's going to be something you can take that probably doesn't cause you super crazy side effects and can get your eating back down to a level that is not going to cause you to increase your obesity anymore and probably reduce it. However, like every single tool that capitalism provides for us, you can use tools in a variety of ways. They can be empowering or they can be less than empowering, sometimes even like crutches, for example. So if you want to be leaner and want to be healthier, drugs like Ozempic are like just the shield and sword of Athena. Like, holy crap, are they empowering? Because it used to be like trying to get on a diet. 3 weeks later, everything looks like a giant, fatty, juicy drumstick. Like your husband starts looking like one. Can I eat your leg? He's like, what? You're like, I'm sorry, I just need a snack. Pop-Tarts, everything. Because dieting's hard. Your body is designed over millions of years of evolution to be like, hey, we're at a calorie deficit. Probably means we're going to die soon. In ancestral times, get to the fridge. Everything starts smelling good. You start fantasizing about food. But Ozempic and all those drugs can really quiet that process so that now you're like, oh, like this is what it's like to diet if you're just, like everyone has that girlfriend who's like, oh my God, Becky, I'm getting pudgy. And you're like, oh, I hate you. You really have any body fat? And she's like, 3 weeks later, she's like, look, I have my abs back. You're like, what did you do? She's like, I just ate less. And you're like, so it turns us more into that girl that can just kind of do it. And it's just not a big deal anymore because what's called food noise or hunger noise, you're like writing something and you're like, tacos. Nope, I didn't mean to write tacos. I'm just starving to death. All I can think about is tacos. That goes down from a yell to a quiet whisper or to nothing at all. That's enormous. On the other hand, you could do a thing where you take all the anorectic, what are called anorectic drugs that reduce your appetite. You take all those drugs in the world that you want and have no desire or motive force to actually accomplish your fitness goal. And then they will absolutely lower your body weight just because naturally you start eating less, but they're not as empowering and then you're not going to get as much out of them. And you can continue to still be roughly as obese as you've ever been or a little less and still kill yourself with tons of really not good for you foods. One of my colleagues, Dr. Spencer Nadolsky, he's a board certified obesity specialist. He recounted a story that he had interactions with someone before where, and hopefully there's no names involved, so I think it's okay. Spencer will be killing me if not. He was working with this person who was like, he had her on like multiple anorectic medications, obesity drugs, like many, not one. And so like his assessment was that like she couldn't possibly experience food drive with this cocktail. And her body weight wasn't going down. And he was consulting her, trying to figure out what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, tell me what you've been eating. And she's like, well, like I had a candy bar earlier. And he's like, oh, I see. Were you hungry? Because like, look, when you're hungry, Truly. It's a little curt for us to judge you for just reaching for something. Like, we're human, for the love of God. We've all faltered before. And so he was looking for that, like, oh, geez, so were you hungry? And she goes, no. And he's like, why did you eat the candy bar? And she's like, I felt like eating a candy bar. If you're that person, and no offense, we're all different in our own ways, then there ain't no medications coming to save you, because the medication's a sword and a shield. If there's a hyena over there and you got Zeus's or Athena's shield and sword, you could just go like that and the hyena dies, but you just drop them and go, wee, it's going to cuddle with you, and hyenas aren't good at cuddling. So that medications now being our new best friend, empowering us to do things, is amazing, but we can use them to empower ourselves, or we can just use them and sort of continue to eat the same diet of Cheetos and Pepsi Cola. No offense, Pepsi, who I think also might manufacture Cheetos, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right.
Then, like, if you don't want to take the little babyest nth step to help yourself, it's going to be tough. But for those people who have been struggling with just genetically high proclivity to eat and want to do the thing, it's just really hard for them to do the thing, these medications are unbelievable. They're also, on a net balance, healthier for you probably to take than not to take. They have incredible glucose clearing, anti-diabetic benefits. They have really cool cognitive benefits, we're learning. They actually lower your addictive drive to almost everything. People like quitting smoking, they're quitting drinking on these drugs. They stop biting their nails and stuff. It's really trippy. And so, because there's that, on a personal level, when you're really, really hungry, like after a bodybuilding show or something, with these like wide eyes for stuff, you just want things to go inside you. Like, you can't even barely taste food anymore. You just like, there's this gaping hole you have to fill. If that drug quiets the crap out of that, all of a sudden making healthy choices and actually sticking to them is this thing that you just have to be an organized, conscientious person to be able to do, instead of being a person who's fighting like an unbelievably powerful temptation, which is tough.
Oh, wasn't that so good that Mike just said? I want to pop here really quickly and tell you one thing. We saw that about 60% of our audience is not following the podcast, is not subscribed as you're listening to somebody as brilliant as Mike. I want to make sure you guys get to the next one. So do me a favor right now, stop wherever you are and subscribe to this podcast so that you can be part of our cool crew. We got a ton of exciting stuff coming up this week, and that helps us get bigger guests for all of you.
I was reading a little bit about that there are some early indicators that, and you as an exercise scientist, and given this is your field and I'm just playing around in it part-time.
Don't ever question my expertise.
Do you worry at all about if we inhibit the reward sensors, let's say, inside of our body to say, no, I don't want food, I don't want maybe even sex, I don't know if there's anything that shows that happens, I won't have alcohol. Like, could it mess with our reward sensors overall? Will it have any like suicidal issues? Do you worry about it in the same way? I just sort of, commonsensically, I look at it like SSRIs or something, where like we're like, they should make us happier, but because they dole these different things, or then there's actually these third and fourth order side effects that like we want to keep our eye out.
Yeah.
Does any part of that actually make sense medicinally?
Yeah.
And is that just like everything else? It's like good things in measure?
It's a very good point. A couple of things. One is we are consistently engineering and re-engineering drugs to have better main effects and fewer side effects. To the point of SSRIs, there's a new medication that just got approved in early 2024, late 2023. Gepirone is not the trade name. Gepirone is the generic name. The trade name is Exua. EXXUA. I don't know who the hell comes up with these drug names, but beautiful. It has very similar, probably slightly elevated antidepressive functions compared to traditional antidepressants. But its effects, at the very least, on food drive and on sex drive are not statistically differentiable from placebo, which means that now there is an antidepressant pill that takes you out of major depressive disorder, but at the same time doesn't really mess you up in seemingly very many ways. That's not a Gen 1 drug. That's like Gen 9 or something. So as drugs evolve, they're seeking to reduce the side effects, some of which you describe, and increase the main effect to the point where if you, let's say, have like a blood pressure drug that you take, someone can legitimately ask you, if you take a modern blood pressure medication, they're like, so what are the side effects? You're like, I don't think there are many or any. You look at the medical literature, like a few austere side effects for some people, usually nothing. You can't even tell you're on them. And so like, man, that is a well-engineered drug. So we're heading in that direction. However, we're not there yet perfectly for most drugs. And so for Ozempic and all those other drugs, there are downsides for sure. For some, and it really comes down to this. On a broad strokes level, they work just super well for almost everyone. But almost everyone, let's say, is 85%. In the United States population of roughly 300 million, with this tens of millions of people who are going to have a bad time on Ozempic and all the other drugs like it. And so, yeah, we're doing great. But all those concerns you bring up, some people, that kind of saps their joie de vivre or whatever.
Right.
And seemingly it doesn't do a ton of that, but on the margins it can, especially at very high doses, especially as it mixes with your own internal pharmacology. It can definitely do that. There are some risks of various types of other things that can occur. Obviously, the biggest problem with these drugs is that if you crank the dosage really high to get the main effect, the side effects come up with it, and those can be really well managed if you eat really well. Lower fat diet, decent amount of protein, plenty of veggies, not overeating, not eating a ton of super tasty foods. And it can empower you to do that diet and be like, this is great. But if you take a bunch of Ozempic and then you get into some pizza, you know that thing where like your body doesn't really tell you it's full until like 20 minutes into eating or something. There's a little validity to that. I mean, just on habit, some people can pipe down like 9 slices of pizza before the bell rings. Oh, I got 9. The thing is, your stomach is digesting at such a slow rate when you're on Ozempic that you get so much pizza in the stomach at once. It kind of makes an executive decision and it goes, this is a non-starter. I can't have rotting pizza. And then you'll get gastroparesis, which is like the cessation of digestion altogether. Sometimes it goes up one way, sometimes it goes the other way, sometimes it stays in there and causes you massive pain everywhere, and you go to the hospital, they pump your stomach. If you make really bad choices on this kind of drug, it's kind of like, there's like an anti-smoking drug, like Chantix or whatever. Yeah. I heard that if you like smoke on that drug, you're going to have a real bad time. So just don't do that. But if you take the drug, you don't want to smoke. Yeah. Some people will take the drug and think it's like a panacea. They think like, oh, this is instead of responsible dieting and exercise. Yeah. It's not. It's an adjunct therapy to them. Yeah. And in that way, it works really, really well. But if you're just like, I'm just going to eat the same crap I always did, you might have a really bad time of it.
Well, I think it's like really beautiful the way that you talk about it, because so often we're so dismissive of drugs for people who are, let's say, morbidly obese. And a lot of people on podcasts are just like, just get up at 6 a.m., cold plunge, sauna, then do the workout, then eat nothing with seed oil. And we just kind of minimize how hard it is to go backwards from something. I mean, I've seen it with my family too. Incredibly difficult to go backwards. And if there's something that can help you in some way and use it responsibly, I think it's reasonable for us to appreciate that. You can tell you've talked to a lot of people because of your EQ with how you explain it. I also think
I talk to no when I sit in front of a YouTube studio.
You talk at a lot of people.
Not even, it's just a camera aperture. They never let me out.
Really?
Help.
No, I think he's killing it. But I'm like, the other thing I think that's kind of interesting about this is, let's say the blood pressure medicine. Like my dad's been on it forever. But the thing with my dad is I'm like, yeah, it seems to be very helpful for you. Also, you do nothing to actually help yourself with blood pressure. Like you think that cheese crisps are a food group. And
whoa. You're going to insult cheese crisps on somebody else's pod. No, wait, this is your podcast.
This is my podcast. He's going to be pissed. He'll side with you. But if we're like symptom covering this other terrible thing that we're doing with drugs, I don't think that's great. But I've never heard about the food drive spoken in this way.
Yes.
Which doesn't seem to me like it would be a symptom of something wrong in the body. It might just be genetic.
It's totally genetic.
Interesting.
And it also happens to be somewhere where the conspiracy theorists are sort of correct in a very low-key way. There is a corporate conspiracy to try to make food as cheap and delicious and accessible to you as possible. But it's not a conspiracy. It's just what people buy at the store. McDonald's over the years has tried to have a bunch of menu items that were healthy, and they usually discontinue them after some amount of time. Yeah. And like, look, like your career is to be super corporate savvy and understand economics and things like that, business practices. Yeah, the McDonald's Corporation, great. I love them, right? But to believe that the people in charge of McDonald's are any much more than using their pure Machiavellian drive to determine ROI is insane. Like, it's a publicly traded company. If you don't do ROI as the internal calc there, you're just not going to sit on the board for much longer.
Incentive alignment, that's it.
That's it.
We're all Pavlov's dogs.
Pavlov's dogs. And so if you get a menu item that's super healthy, it doesn't taste that great. Even, hey, it tastes great, but it's super healthy, a little fibrous, a little salad feel. There's nothing really beats like one of the McDonald's cheeseburgers just sliding down your throat. You're like, I don't even have to chew this thing. I can inhale it. You give them another product. If it doesn't generate proper ROI for its alternate menu position, right? Every part of the menu is what's the ROI? Yeah. And it's a stacked rank order list. If something falls below the bottom, it's out and something else is to replace it. Yeah. You know all these things. It's not rocket science. If it falls below that, like, why do we sell this at all? It's gone. Yeah. And on the other hand, people are like, see, they just want us to be fat. Corporations do not want you to be fat. Not in the least.
They want to be rich.
It turns out they want to be rich. And how do they get rich? They give you what you tell them you want, not verbally, with your dollars. Yep. And so when if they have a salad at McDonald's ever that makes sense on the numbers, like people love it and they buy it, you will see McDonald's transformed into a health food enterprise. They don't care. Can you imagine like sitting down at McDonald's board and they're like, health food's really picking up. Our menu items in health category are crushing it. They're like, Jesus, how are we supposed to make America fat if they won't eat our junk food anymore? Foot in the line. We're selling only Cheetos. We're going down with the ship. This is never going to happen. They're going to sell you what people buy. Trouble is, people don't seem to, as often, in many cases, be interested in buying the super healthy stuff. That's a people problem. It's not a corporation's problem. I mean, corporations are a second order problem to that, but so what do you want them? Because people are like, oh, these big food companies, they really need to be taken to task. How do you do that? You go into stop selling tasty things people buy. Like, what? So what are we supposed to sell? Like, well, good stuff. Like, we're going to go out of business. Like, good. Well, okay, we'll just shut it down now. It's a total non-starter. So to those people that value personal responsibility, I'm huge on that. At the end of the day, it's up to the individual to decide, like, do I want to go to McDonald's and get a salad with grilled chicken? Or do I want to go to McDonald's and just have some soul food? Fries dipped in shake. You know what I mean? The girl cheat meal where there's like not even a protein source around.
Yep.
You know, column A, column B. Which one do you want? At the end of the day, probably the best way to get some traction is to focus on the individual again. Yeah. Why are you choosing to eat the following foods? Some people, and there's a positive, super inclusive side to this. Part of that argument is everyone has a different food drive genetically. You have no idea what it's like to be in someone else's body. You might think you have a lot of willpower, but it takes some people Navy SEAL carrying boats overhead willpower to resist eating junk food. Like, that's how, and I do have an insight on this. I've gotten down to a relatively low body fat percentage in bodybuilding competition. The psychology of someone whose body thinks they're starving to death, seen from the inside, is a totally different world. I'll watch movies where the characters will be at a dinner table and they're like, you know, like super awesome mom-made spaghetti, kind of a little loaf of bread for everyone, a little mini bun, some broccoli, like obviously it's covered in like some kind of thing that sheens for the camera. They're not supposed to eat it or whatever. And the characters are talking to each other. And when you're starving enough, what I start to think, and many of my friends who've competed in bodybuilding and lost a lot of fat, you start to be like, well, why aren't they eating? Why are they talking to each other? Because if I was in that scene, I'd be like, yo, pause. I'll tell you what happened in school after this. Your whole perception just goes, just food. There was a Minnesota semi-starvation experiment back a really long time ago. Not ethical anymore, but they took some folks and they were in like a work camp situation and they cut their calories by like, roughly half. And what they noticed is the degree of food obsession skyrocketed. All they talked about was food. They started doing a trade with food in the cafeteria situation. It was just insane. And so if someone lives in that world permanently, us saying like, man, they just got to toughen up, like, that might not be true. They might actually be tougher than you. There's a specific person, I forgot, I'm not going to call this person out by name, nor do I know their name, but I was watching like a Microsoft debuting some of their new AI products, big stand-up thing with a projector and a huge screen. And there was a person there who was super, super high level at Microsoft on the eng side too. Like, and he was just like straight up morbidly obese, not in a bad way, just physically, literally. He was talking about tech stuff and, you know, all this AI stuff. I'm like, that person's smarter than all of us. you don't just end up as the number 3 at Microsoft or whatever eng side just by like being a will-less, soulless person who does whatever appears. This is a person who's spent late nights, who's grinded, he was the best in every engineering pro, was the best mathematician, the best coder, the best everything. This is a willpower generator. And he still looks like that. What do you think his food noise is like? You put anyone else in his body, they'd be 800 pounds in a matter of months and would die in their sleep or something. So it's not always accurate to say that people who have let themselves go just have low willpower overall. That's the light side. The dark side is that trait conscientiousness, how much you plan ahead, how much you think about your health and everything, is very genetic, though not entirely, maybe about half, and influences a ton of stuff about how you live your life, including what choices you make, how to address your hunger and food drive. So a lot of people that are overweight, yeah, they really do make bad choices because they just don't care that much.
Yeah.
One of the things that always comes up in the nutrition field is, how do we improve nutritional education? What many times people fail to ask is, who wants to know? Like,
Yes, exactly.
Most people, and here's the other thing, if they've done studies like this, you just talk to people as they enter McDonald's. You ask them, like, is this healthy food? They're like, no. They know that. People know what junk food is. You give someone with no nutritional education a green, fresh apple and then a bag of M&Ms. You go, which one of those is healthier? They're like, I don't understand. Is this a trick question? It's not a trick question. They're like, the apple. You're like, correct. How do they know that? Everyone kind of knows what's what at a very basic level. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people, you tell them, like, do you know any people that smoke cigarettes by any chance? You're too young for that sort of thing. Back in my day, we smoked cigarettes. Well, you're just not cool enough in Austin.
That's
all
also
the cool
true.
Austin people with the cowboy hat, they smoke.
Definitely not cool. Yeah. Like menthols?
Same. I've just seen videos about these cool people. Cowboys literally riding their horse into the bar. The horse is smoking too. Just
supermodels.
The horse has a cowboy hat. I'm like more fascinated with the horse at this point. I'm like, what's the horse's name? What? But like a lot of people that smoke cigarettes or like drink a lot, you're like, that's killing you. They're like, yeah. Like, okay. So when a lot of times people have a high degree of body fat, you're like, you could be eating better. Like, what's on the menu tonight? You're like, oh my God. So there is a part of this where it's like, dude, many people are trying in their own best way. And these medications help bring them back to what maybe is the average amount of food noise that everyone who's pretty lean feels all day. So it's not right for us to judge people. But at the other hand, we can judge people a little bit because some people just don't care. Yeah. And then like, how do you address that? Corporations, food stuff, that goes out the window. But those people are going to want it anyway. It comes down to talking to the individual and asking, like, do you want to improve your life? Yeah. And if they're like, I'm good, then like, we're just going to have some obese people. And as long as, in my view and the view of our company, RP, is we want to help every single human on earth who wants to get into better shape, to get into better shape. But notice the wording. We don't want to help anyone who doesn't want to help themselves. That's arguably impossible outside of like North Korea or something like that.
100%. My dad always says, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, which is a very Western
Is it a
way
cigarette smoking horse with the cowboy hat?
They get thirsty. Also, speaking of thirsty, maybe we could grab like his water from somewhere. I think.
I have it right.
Oh, you have one. Okay, good. I just want to make sure you were.
Did I look thirsty?
No, but I feel bad. I'm over here drinking, and then you're having to do all the work. Okay, let's talk conspiracies.
Yes.
My conspiracy is I want to have what the kids talk about these days, which is a snatched jaw. Have you heard of this? And
I'm sorry.
Like a really strong jaw. And
jaw. Yeah. Snatched.
That's what they say. You ever heard this? No. Okay. You have one. So does my husband. Is it true that we are eating softer foods, and so we have these like weak jaws, and if we masticate on, I don't know, hard, gross, sappy things that I see on the internet, or if we do jaw exercises, we get stronger jaws? Mm-hmm. Is that true?
That's very likely. Yeah. The effect might, in some people, be profound, where like they started their jaw stuff and like a few months later, like, oh my God, like Tony Danza kind of thing hanging out. But
that actually works. Like those things that you chew on like that.
Funny enough, the muscles for mastication go all the way up your head.
Are you masticating all the time? Look at the size.
I just take a lot of steroids, to be honest.
You told me.
JK, I had the same head shape before I ever touched any steroids. It's just weird genetics or whatever.
Yeah.
Cody, to be completely honest, I used to want to be a head model. It just never
could.
happened. Don't patronize me. Thanks.
Listen, have you seen models these days?
Yes,
Very
there's plenty of ugly
diverse
people are
looking.
models. I'm like, that's a good point. Yeah. So for some people, that effect will be very small.
Okay.
So like chew on sticks for 6 months, look in the mirror, and you'll be like, damn it, I look the same.
Okay.
But on average, there should be an effect. And it will, here's the thing, like, you got to be consistent. And so one thing, if you get some kinds of gum that are pretty hard to chew, chewing a few sticks of gum a day can get you some good jaw exercise. Changing your whole diet would be a highly inconvenient trip.
Yeah.
Maybe you could do that. I don't know. What is the benefit of having a muscular jaw that people want?
I think men want it because women find it more attractive.
Do they?
I think so. That's like the whole Chad, the meme of the Chad with the big jaw. I don't know, flat jawed, kind of like.
Okay, so on that note, I never can tell if the ideal man memes floating around are just perpetuated by what men think women want or what women actually want.
That's true because more women choose the dad bod. I read a wild study that basically said, actually, if given two choices, a Chad, very fit, six-pack, etc., versus a dad bod, a little fluffy, maybe a tiny bit of a receding hairline, on average, as a partner, perhaps not in a one-off situation, they choose more than 60% of the time the dad bod. So maybe you're right. Men think women want Chads, and really they want Todds.
Todd.
I feel like a Todd would have a dad bod.
Yeah, he could.
Yeah. Okay.
There's also a different, very off topic at this point, but whatever.
Yeah.
Women, based on what they want out of you, you're going to look different for them. So if they want like Becky just broke up with her long-term boyfriend, she's like, I just need a night out. It's girls' night. It's not girls' night. She's hunting. And, it's girls' night's a great cover for that sort of thing. Like, hey, Liz, is that guy looking at me? She's like, I don't know. Like, shut up and look over there. She's going to want a male that on average looks a little different than like the guy of your dreams who you fantasize about having children with after 1 minute of talking to him.
Yeah.
That latter person's going to be softer featured, kinder, gentler, probably has like a future of income stream stability and nonviolence.
Yeah.
You're like, this guy's probably not going to rough me up. But if you're looking for a one-night stand sort of vibe, which girls get into every now and again, also with their menstrual cycle, there are periods where girls will prefer one versus the other.
Wrong guy based on
Oh,
their
yes.
menstrual cycle?
You'll think back to your friends like, oh, yeah, that absolutely does happen. But then you want more of like a 6'5" bearded abs. Who else knows what? Cigarettes. I don't know. The horse. I'm just back to the horse again. But yeah, no, there's a difference there. Yeah,
I don't know where I and my wife and your wife went wrong then, because we both chose like the really jacked, sort of violent dudes. Like you're a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, right? But I guess, it's super interesting.
My wife's way more violent than me.
She's
just getting into grappling now,
Really?
and she can't like if every now and again we'll be somewhere and there's like a crazy person being crazy. You live in Austin, you know what that's like. She starts to do like the jiu-jitsu finger warm-ups. She wants that shit.
She does.
Yeah, oh yeah. She's nuts, man. I love that bitch.
Yeah. Chris taught me a wrist lock.
Oh yeah, dope.
Never felt more powerful in my life.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Like 100%.
Yeah.
The only problem I found with that stuff is, man, this sounds like a weird thing. I'd be curious your take, but it seems like as a woman, if you want to be good at self-defense, you actually have to really train your violent, fast twitch or like fast action muscles. Because I could have all the theories in my head, but then something happens. Like one time Chris tried to show me this. He's like, just watch. And he like charged at me, like full thing across the jiu-jitsu mat. And I just freaked out. And just like, I did nothing. And I feel like men, you guys get used to that. Like you're good at fast twitch. Like my husband will err on the side of violence if he needs to quickly. But
women's also a Navy SEAL.
It helps.
Slightly trained in violence.
It helps.
He's had a few months of training here.
Yeah. But have you found that for women, it's harder to err on the side of violence even when we need to?
On average, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is such a real thing that a large fraction of female athletes at the very top of their sports have trouble getting up for a competition, like waking up to try to do their best, especially in very sports which require confrontation, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, even like volleyball and stuff like that, where like women have a more on average cooperative vibe and a synergistic vibe and less of a clashing of big chests vibe. And that actually makes women like, I don't know, 1,000 times less violent and prone to going to prison than males. So thank God. They got the luck of the draw on that one. But also a lot of times women don't have that like fire, I want to kill something kind of energy, even maybe when they need it. So one of the big things about like self-defense seminars that they teach, two drawbacks. One is they'll teach you something for an hour. It's not enough training time for you to be able to pull it off in real life. You need consistent training all the time. So that's a problem. The other problem is a lot of women, when faced in that real scenario, they won't have what in the military is called violence of action. And that means like real gunfights, real fights for life and death. They happen very aggressively and very quickly. And if you're not in that mindset when it starts happening to you, your brain could recess into a sort of evolutionary calculated victim mindset where, like, a typical insanely thoughtless retort to, let's say, an account of sexual violence against a woman. Inevitably, some guys on the internet will be like, why didn't she fight back? Well, imagine if you were a typical male, 180 pounds, 5'10", and you were being sexually assaulted by a 340-pound, 6'7" offensive lineman.
Oh, Jesus.
Like, you might calculate totally subconsciously, if I resist, he's just going to kill me. But if I just make it through this, I'll be okay and I'll deal with it later. Survival is more important than reproductive sanctity, which is super, super messed up to say, but it's also true. Yeah. And so if women want to flip that switch of, I'm not interested in being a victim, they have to have the toolkit behind them, the combat training or the arsenal. Like there's cool pens you can have, like the atomic bear.
Oh, I have some of those.
Baller. But the thing is, like, using that pen requires flipping it into a very ancestral frame of mind. Because the way you're supposed to use that pen is you're supposed to take it out and repeatedly jam it up someone's chin until they fall over, and then you run away.
Which sounds messy,
It's insanely messy. It's supposed to be messy because it's supposed to get their blood going out of them. But if you just go poke one time, they're going to take that pen and do things to you with it, or they'll swat it away, or they'll just proceed in doing whatever they wanted. So in a confrontation that's real, you have to make that switch. I'm fighting for my life. I'm fighting for my life. And then if you have a toolkit behind you of knowing what to do, you can be really dangerous as a woman and make a lot of guys really uncomfortable and no longer want to pursue anything. But if you don't know much, you might be in a place where you're like, oh my God, like, the more I fight back, the more violent he gets. And just gotta kind of sit through this, which is terrible. But it's
so fascinating, but sadly true, I think. I feel like you should break my heart and tell me about alcohol, because I really love a couple glasses of wine. And these days I hear that's pretty much categorically not great for you. What's going on with alcohol? Should we drink it or not?
Yeah. I'm drunk right now. To be honest, I never leave the house sober. Moderation is a huge thing, and it's still a real thing. It's never sexy to talk about, but it's real. So if you have lots of alcohol consistently, 4, 5, 6 drinks a day, it's going to have an effect on long-term health, long-term cognition, definitely body fat and all that other stuff, muscle mass. If you have 1 or 2 glasses of wine a night, most nights, statistically it has almost no effect on anything negative-wise. It has maybe some curious positives here and there.
Really?
Yeah, sure, like cardiac health and stuff like that. Turns out like red wine especially has some really healthy things in there for you. Another thing is, if a little bit of alcohol all alcohol is poisonous to some extent, but if a little bit of alcohol gets you into the unplugging, stress-reducing mindset frame that you're going to carry through the rest of that evening, that 3 hours of super low stress, body and mind, sympathetic nervous system goes down, parasympathetic, the relaxation part kicks up. If that gets you there, then that 3 hours every day of super relaxed being is such a huge health promoting factor that the alcohol to get you there is worth the trade-off. Ideally, you should just be able to do meditation or something, flip into the mind frame of relaxation, and then boom. But if it takes a few drinks, that's totally cool. The thing is, if you go from 1 to 2 drinks a day on average to 2 to 3, you're in questionable water. 3 to 4, you're not really in questionable water anymore. You're probably doing health harm all the way up to 9, 10, 11, and then you need to go live in a rehab center for a while. So with alcohol, like with many things, the dose, the frequency, and what you do with it is important. Another thing is, like, if you just have a couple glasses of wine, that's really not a big deal. But if you have a couple glasses of wine and then you get the like the alcohol hunger, where like,
No, but I've heard weed. But back when I used to use weed, I was like, it's great because it's no calories. Wine is like 100 calories a glass of wine, or 150 or whatever. But then I'd have some weed and I'd be like, the thing is, I probably need to eat that whole cake.
it looks so good and it tastes so good.
I know. And it's hard, I think, in business for me, at least. I meditate, I work out a lot, whatever. But I think similar to a lot of people, it is hard for me to shut it off. This thing's always motoring.
Oh, yeah.
And so that glass of wine, it's interesting that you say that. Because I feel guilty for it these days. And I think a lot of people do. There's so many people, like, big fan of Andrew Huberman, but he's like, the thing is, if you're drinking alcohol, bad. And
He says that about a lot of things.
I know.
Caffeine.
So I think I just live joylessly through life with, no
That's
fun.
definitely bad. Well, it's actually empirically bad to live joylessly because they've done tons and tons of research that people that don't have a lot of fulfillment and people that can't unplug and de-stress, they die much earlier than everyone else. And so many of the people that have lived the longest have had plenty of alcohol and other things in their life, but they have a very, very concentrated focal point of why they're around, deeply immersing career, family connections, purpose, why they wake up every day sort of thing. And so if in moderation, alcohol is a tapestry, a part of the quilt and the beautiful quilt of your whole life, it's going to be a net positive. And ideally, if you could get what you get out of alcohol through a pill that has no actual alcohol in it, yeah, hell yeah, that'd be better. So human is not wrong. But it all comes down as a trade-off. And so, like, if someone said, like, sitting is bad for you, there's some research if you sit a really long time, general inactivity is not that great. And then, like, does that replace, like, sitting your kids down and watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy over a long weekend? Like, if that's not a cool thing to do anymore, what the hell are we living for anyway? It's a beautiful part of life that you just removed. So everything should be seen as in context, on average, and over net effects over lifespan. So yeah, if you're a booze hound, you're just always drunk, like, you're going to die much sooner, bad health, etc. But if you have a few drinks here and there, guiltlessly, I might add, guilt is not so good for the body-mind connection, and you're able to relax with them, very, very likely, it's a net positive.
That's fascinating.
I don't drink, by the way. But,
Ever?
no, I just don't get anything out of it that I used to. I used to drink a little bit in college because drinking reduced my inhibitions and allowed me to be more confident with others. I now arguably have, like, I need more inhibition in my life rather than less. I have no issues with that whatsoever. And so I just don't need alcohol. It just poisons me. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm getting sick and I have a headache and I can't think straight. Yay. None of the positives. I do dabble in the weeds a little bit. I do edibles. I don't
Talk
smoke.
to me about that. Like, I was in cannabis actually for a couple of years, 3 or 4 years. I was an investor.
Oh, dope.
Companies there.
Okay.
Yeah, and I actually thought I was doing a really good thing, and I'd be curious your take on this. Then I started to see the THC percentages that they were putting in some of the cannabis out there and how it changed. And I had one person in my family and then just recently a second person in my family get what was diagnosed by the doctors as cannabinoid hypermeiosis syndrome.
Okay, what is that?
Well, apparently it is when, we should check me on the internet, but that cannabis can do something to your cannabinoid receptors. And you know how a lot of times they give people cannabis when they have cancer or something, and they're going through chemotherapy to help with nausea? Well, it almost is like it triggers the opposite effect. So basically, I saw it firsthand. One of my family members was staying with me and took a hit off of a vape pen. And we had a sneaking suspicion that it was something with the cannabis. But when I'm saying sober, hit, about to go to the airport, violent vomiting for 2 days, blue all over,
Holy crap.
multiple IVs. They have to stay. He had to stay in the shower. Heat seems to like be one of the only things that temper the response. So they'll just sit in the shower or the bath for like hours on end, and it happened and lose like 40 pounds, like skinny. I mean, on the brink of death.
The ultimate weight loss drug.
Cannabis. So I started to get concerned about the degree at which we were increasing THC. There's no research about this because it's still Schedule 1. So we don't actually know why. So I'm definitely concerned about the high THC levels, just having experienced that twice. Must be something genetic too, because 2 of my family members had it. and arguably used high dose THC previously, but it was horrifying. It was so scary for our family, and he was addicted. Like, he had to get off of it. Yeah. So I guess I never thought that cannabis was addictive previously.
So there's kind of two kinds of addiction, from what I understand, sort of. This is very, very not highly informed take. There's physical.
It's hard to be highly informed when there's no research, right?
So there's like psychological addiction, where like you like it fits your lifestyle, you don't want to be without it, it feels good. And then there's physical addiction, which is like if someone just stops doing heroin, they have to be supervised, otherwise they could die. And they have like crazy fevers and all this other hallucinations. And once you're over the hump, like you're fine. But there's no real physical addiction, seemingly, with marijuana, or nothing to write home about. Like, you don't like have people who used to do weed in like a treatment center be like, watch out, they're crazy. Like, they're just kind of like, guess I'm not high. Yeah. But the psychological addiction can be a thing, because if you really like how weed makes you feel, you can just keep taking weed all the time and feel something like that. It's super cheap. It's ubiquitous. It doesn't THC doesn't destroy your body's health like heroin does, for example. And so some people get into this place where they're like using a lot of weed all the time. And for a huge, huge number of people, this is totally fine. You're just high all the time. Who cares? Well, I don't know how people do it, because I only do weed when I have to, like, nothing is required of me. I can't be useful on weed. No way. But some people can, apparently. Yeah. And so for them, God bless them. Use all the weed you want. But for other folks, especially at certain very high concentrations, they're going to get into some side effects. And they're going to get into some weird, quirky scenarios. And it's just not going to be something that fits for them anymore. Basically, like THC and marijuana, etc., this is a drug. And every drug, the way I treat it, is a serious thing. Like, one does not simply. There is like a culture in fitness, more like in the Middle Eastern world and in the European world, not as much in the U.S., of like, oh, I've been lifting for a few months. Let's try oral steroids. It's just like another tool in the toolbox. It's not. It's a super powerful thing that has big upsides and big downsides. It requires careful management. Marijuana is the same way. So is alcohol. And so, if weed people treat as just like, oh, whatever, who cares? Then yes, some fraction of people are going to have a real bad time. And again, in a country of 300 million people, 5% of people have pretty bad experiences with marijuana. There's tens of millions of people that are going to be screaming at the top of their lungs that, holy crap, this is poison. I mean, the other thing with weed is that, like, I think a lot of people more on the hippie side of things, which I think they're great, but we all have our various ways in which we're wrong, myself included. The hippie people want to imagine that marijuana is this, like, God made it for us from the earth, and it's this herb that takes care of the whole being. It is never a problem. It just heals everything.
I've met a few of those.
A few. Austin's half the population.
Yeah, they're all.
But, like, that's just not true. Yeah, weed can be great for many people, but it's also a powerful drug, and thus we have to treat it with respect. And if and when we see that some folks are climbing up in the dosages and they're starting to have a real wacky time, it's time to pull back and think, like, hold on a second. You can't just eat 3 200 mg THC candy bars an hour and think like, hey, this is okay, because maybe it is. But when it's not, we have to dump that hippie philosophy of like, weed's good. And that's the real thing is, in the internet, we can get things pretty simplified, maybe overly simplified.
Yeah.
And you start to get people that are like, weed is great, versus people are like, weed is terrible. And a few of us who are here in the corner are like, weed's a drug. It can be good in some instances, but bad in others. Nobody wants to hear that. Shut up. That's too nuanced.
Yeah, that is the internet, definitely. Yeah. So I get slightly overwhelmed by all the supplements out there. And I really like that you have a bunch of videos where you're just super clear. You're like, here's what I think. Here are some that I like. If you had to say like some of your favorite supplements that you think actually work, what are they?
Work for who and for what?
I don't know. For being fit and healthy.
So for most people, they're just trying to be fit and healthy. They just don't need any supplements at all.
Interesting.
Some people can get tests for this, especially in northern latitudes if you don't see the sun a lot, like various vitamin D supplements might be a good idea. Some people need a little bit more zinc and so on and so forth. But that's much more contextual and nuanced and depends on the individual. The average person, if they're eating a decently well-balanced diet, just doesn't need any supplements of any kind. Now, if you have a little trouble getting in your daily protein requirement, protein supplements are cool. And they're really just like actual protein food distilled down into a chocolate powder that you mix and you drink, and then it's fine. So there's nothing exotic about them. If you're trying to get really extra super special jacked and you want that little bit of an edge, creatine could work. There are a few other supplements in that general sort of space where, like, for most people, they just never even notice that they're on them. It's just annoying to take a powder every morning. But for some people, the trade-off is worth it. And it's super cheap. It's super good for your health. But 5 grams of creatine a day is totally cool. Most supplements fall into that category of, if you're trying to really push your fitness in that next level, there are like 3 or 4, maybe 5 that are like possibly worth exploring. The other thing is, if you have a nutrient deficiency of some kind, vitamin D deficiency, zinc or something, you can take those as supplements and then you'll be better. But for most people, eating remotely healthy and just pursuing a healthy lifestyle, it just would be untrue for me to say that everyone needs supplements.
So when people come to, like, RP Strength, for instance, and they're looking for different ways to get fit, and I would assume often like muscularly fit too.
Yeah.
How do you guide somebody in trying to figure out supplements, let's say, or do you guys?
Yeah, so we have a few videos on our YouTube channel that tell you what the supplements are that we think work and tell you about the use cases.
So if you were to say, like, you're young, you want to get fit, you're like sort of middling right now, but you want to be pretty muscular, and you're a man versus a woman. Broad strokes, I know it can't be that nuanced, but people have no time for nuance. So what would you tell somebody like that, or even the questions that they should ask themselves?
Go to your doctor, ask them if you are deficient in any of the essential vitamins and minerals and what tests can be done to ascertain that. Your doctor will help you out or will refer you to a registered dietitian to figure that out. And if the tests come back like you're Gucci, no worries, then you don't have to take anything. If you are deficient in some kind of vitamins and minerals, then you can start to buy supplements to address that deficiency, retest later to see that it's been addressed, and then you're good to go. If you have trouble getting in a daily amount of protein, then protein shakes and protein bars can be really cool. Those are supplements. If you want to get a little bit more jacked, but you've been lifting for a while, and you can now kind of tell subtlety versus like, oh, I have muscles versus I used to not, creatine can be a supplement you can take. If you train really early in the morning and you're just dragging, but you got to get it done, pre-workouts can be okay. Although pre-workouts are really just a ton of caffeine smashed into something that tastes like strawberries.
I took one once and about had a heart attack. And I didn't realize it got better if you worked out, so I just laid there and canceled my workout.
In
panic for an hour. But now I kind of can use them and it works.
Yeah.
It really does help in the gym, though.
It can, yeah. If you need a bit more of that rage, totally. But also, like, a cup of black coffee can do something very similar, and you can grade it more because, like, 1 scoop is 1 scoop. You could start to get the level half a scoop or something. Most pre-workouts are, in my opinion, like, wildly overdosed. Why? Because when people buy them, the kind of people that recommend pre-workouts on the internet are the kind of people that are connoisseurs, which means they build up a tolerance. And if you don't wow people on the first dose, they're just going to be like, this thing sucks, it doesn't work. And so a lot of times you get this increasing amount of caffeine and other stimulants inside of pre-workout to where someone like me and you who aren't used to them, you end up lying in bed thinking like, did I mess up? Am I going to die here? Start writing out your will.
100%. I was like, the thing is, I took meth on accident, and what happened is...
Funny you should say. There used to be a kind of oral modified version of meth that was legal to put into supplements. There's a supplement called, Jacked 3D, that was the old formula prior to like 2015 or something. And that legitimately had a version of methamphetamine in it. And so like friends that used to take it were like, it was not caffeine. It was different. You would train until your body fell apart and you were just like eye lasering everything. It was intense. Yeah. It turns out it wasn't that great for your health, but whatever. You're jacked. You're on meth. Who cares?
When you go to the gym, and then I kind of wanted to switch topics a little bit, but a couple of things that I love that you've talked about. One, you've talked about how many times a week people actually need to go on average. What are your thoughts on that? Do I got to go to the gym 7 days a week? Do I need to be there for an hour and a half? Can I go for 15 minutes a day?
If it's my gym and I train there as little as possible because I don't want to see you because I want the whole gym to myself. If it's my gym that I own, I want you to be there every day, twice a day. No. I want you to pay the membership but never show up. The Planet Fitness model. Yes. Depends on your goals and depends on how long you've been exercising at a various capacity. So if you've been training hard 4 times a week for an hour and you want to take your fitness to the next level, you either have to do 4 times a week for an hour or 4 times a week for an hour 15 or 5 times a week or 6 times a week. Like whatever physique you've gotten after months and months and maybe even years of doing a certain frequency, like to level up, you might have to do a little bit more if you can recover from it. But if you're just getting into fitness for the first time and you want to make some serious changes, but you don't have a lot of time, 2 sessions a week, each being 30 minutes of doing like compound exercises like rowing and bench pressing and squatting and deadlifting and doing various pull downs and all the shoulder exercises.
Compound means you're moving multiple
muscles and joints at the same time. And that means it's really economical. It's efficient because you don't have to like spend one set doing one exercise, one muscle, and then go to the next one. If you take very short rest breaks between sets, and if you arrange the sets such as muscles that are currently working are going to be resting on the next exercise. So like if you, let's say, combine a bench press with a dumbbell row, not really any of the muscles do both. And so while your bench pressing muscles are resting, you're doing dumbbell rows instead of taking time. If you arrange that in those supersets with 2 sessions per week of 20 to 30 minutes each, even with at-home dumbbells, you can revolutionize your physique and your health if you are starting from just being a regular person out in the world who doesn't work out. Huge deal. If after a year or 2, your physique starts to kind of stabilize and the gains are very slow, you can start to add another session in and another one until you get to, one of my colleagues, Jared Feather, he's a pro bodybuilder. He trains like 10 times a week technically because he has some days which he comes to the gym twice. He'll like do chest and maybe some triceps, so they'll come in later and do much more triceps and shoulders and biceps. You can't, for him, a chest workout or back workout is so intense that there's not much to do after that except go home and rest. So if you want that elite, yeah, maybe anywhere from 5 to 10 times a week in the gym is what's going to get you in your absolute best shape that you're physically capable of getting into. That's at the expense of the rest of your life, though. So I'm not a recommendation on my part, but the really good news is that for most people who aren't working out very seriously or consistently, just 2 or 3 sessions a week, 20 or 30 minutes at a time in a gym can get you unbelievable results. However, you got to be moving. None of this scrolling on the phone while dumbbell curling nonsense. You're going to be sweating. You're going to be breathing heavy. You're going to
How much sweating? Like, how do we measure intensity? That's what my husband says my problem is. I think it's very normal for women. Like, I go in the gym in Collective. Everybody looks hot. They got makeup on. It's not coming off.
So beautiful over there. I feel like such a troll there. I'm like, why am I here?
Me too. Half the time I'm at like my shirt's stained. It's not great. So how does one measure intensity, and how important is that?
Yeah, it's pretty important. Consistency is by far the most important.
Okay.
You show me someone who doesn't work out hard, but they show up every time, they're going to get into way better shape than someone who's psychotic that like skips a month here and there. It's a thing. But basically, we can't measure it super well because it's really internal. But that's up to the person watching this to decide, how far am I pushing it? And so a really good landmark for it is this. First of all, try hard. Say, this set, I'm going to push my body. And here's a big one. I'm going to accept the inevitability of discomfort. I'm here to be uncomfortable. If I'm comfortable the whole time that I'm training, I'm doing something wrong. And there's a couple ways to tell if at the end of a set, you're really pushing the muscle very close to failure. Because when the muscle can't lift the weight anymore, that's kind of the ultimate arbiter of like, you're training pretty hard and that's good enough. So how can you tell you're getting close to failure? 2 ways to tell. One is probably a bit better than the other. One is, how fast are you lifting the weights? Like if you're rowing a row machine and every rep looks like this and you rack it, someone's like, bro, you really couldn't have done a few more? You're like, it got really tough. I don't believe you. Nothing changed. So if the last few reps are starting to get real slow, and anytime you want to quit between when they start getting slow and when you can't move anymore is A-okay. You're in that zone of acceptable difficulty to really get great results. The other one that occurs at roughly the same time is, how does your perception of how hard and heavy the exercise feels change as you do the reps? So reps 1 through 10, you're bench pressing and you're like, feels like 45 pounds or whatever it is. If you're going to fail with a gun to your head at 15 reps, anything after 10, 11, rep 12, rep 13, you may even be able to move it at the same velocity because you're really tuning up. But perceptively, the weight is going to feel heavier, like it's pushing back at you. If you can do a whole set of dumbbell curls, you ever been to like an aerobics class? Yeah. They do a set of 10, they put the dumbbells down, they do something else. You're like, but he tried on that set. Yeah. If at the end of the curls, you're like, really straining, you're working hard enough. And as long as you do that on every single working set of your program, you're going to get all the sweating, you're going to get the heart rate benefits, you're going to get the fat loss benefits, you're going to get the cognitive benefits. If you never really look like you're trying, and more importantly, if you don't feel like you're trying, you're not going to get as good a result.
God, it's so helpful, actually. Now I'm going to do that. This is kind of a crazy idea. I sort of wonder if in the future, we'll be able to buy fitness.
Yes.
Really? Because I kind of
I
think,
can't agree anymore.
okay, tell me why. Will we be able to buy hot bodies and being fit in the future? And if so, how?
This is very much speaking to a huge passion of mine. So anytime that you train with weights, or that you eat a different way, or that you do physical activity, the real thing you're doing is activating certain biochemical pathways in your muscles and other tissues. You're trying to get certain molecular machines to turn on. When these machines turn on, they signal other parts of the body to start building muscle, to start losing fat, to do whatever. And so the reason we do all this stuff is just to turn on a few molecular machines. Now, if we develop drugs that just turn on those machines anyway, why do we need to do this? Now, there's still some connective tissue benefits, which you could also target with different drugs. I'm getting ahead of myself. There are psychological benefits to training that are awesome. I don't want to take away from that at all. It's very important to some people. But if you just want the result physically of fitness, and we know that the way to do that is to activate biochemical pathways, the ability to develop a cocktail of drugs to target most of them is very much within our reach currently. So right now, we've developed a drug that reduces your appetite substantially, the new line of anorectic drugs. They really, really work. And so like we already have a drug that can cause you weight loss. Like, that's really dope. That's like half of the battle. Another drug that I'm looking forward to hopefully hitting the markets in the next 5 to 10 years or something is a pure anabolic. What that means is if you take anabolic steroids, they grow muscle with you just sitting there, a ton. They grow as much muscle as working out does, but you don't have to work out. The problem is they give you heart disease risk, stroke risk, they drive you insane, sex drive goes all over the place. If you're a woman, they're called androgens, man creators. They will turn you in every conceivable way into more of a masculine person. You'll get hair growing all over here. Getting ready for the club becomes more difficult or easier depending on which target you got. So they're really, really terrible at this. But it turns out that there are certain receptors we know exist and certain molecules in the body exist that if you target them, you'll just get purely muscle growth of skeletal muscles, all the normal ones you can see, and really nothing else. Have you ever seen the pictures on the internet of like the cow and the mouse and the greyhound? They're like doubly, they're super jacked. They don't work out. They just have a genetic mutation in which there's a molecule, a protein called myostatin. Myomuscle, statin means stopper. It stops muscle growth. It caps muscle growth all the time. So it turns out your body's muscle growth machinery is always kind of like ready. It's ready to go. And it stops it. And so if you deactivate that gene and you don't make myostatin anymore, your body's like full tilt muscle growth all the time, right? And just boom, just goes. So which is why the cow is adorable. This is a little gentle cow and he's just standing. His triceps are hanging fat free and everything because most of your metabolism starts going to your muscles. Your fat gets starved and then you're just super lean and super jacked. There is no current human grade myostatin deactivator drug, but to make one isn't a matter of like how do we get people to like Alpha Centauri, the next star? Like that's a huge undertaking with a lot of questions that we don't have answers to and a lot of questions we don't even know we should be asking. How to make a myostatin inhibiting drug is just a matter of like the guys doing the AI modeling with drugs now, just put that into the computer, getting a couple candidate drugs out, testing them on animals and then humans, and boom, you got one. It's not super complex. It's also one target. It's just one protein.
Why haven't they done that, you don't think?
Drug companies are, as we talked about earlier, profit and loss enterprises. And the number of people that would be paying a lot of money to get a muscle enhancing drug is just like relegated to like fitness people, and even not most of them, because most people are like, I'm not taking any drugs. And most fitness people in America, they don't take steroids because they're like, that's poison, and they're not wrong. And so you're a pharmaceutical company, you do years of FDA approval to get a drug that like 300,000 people buy, like you're in the red, like $3 billion or something like that. However, this is changing now. As we're getting a grip in the pharmaceutical industry on having drugs that allow people to lose weight, we're now realizing that, gee, we're having a lot of more elderly people and people who can lose a lot of weight, and then they're under-muscled. They just don't have enough muscle to be as healthy as they could be. Activities of daily living become a problem. So now there was a position paper written about a year ago that was like, we need a non-androgenic anabolic for a ton of stuff because it's going to reverse diabetes. It's going to do all this really cool stuff. And so now that's probably going to start to be in the pipeline. It's just like when you have heart disease and diabetes and all those other things that are prominent, you develop drugs for them. Like what is the American obesity drug market? I don't know, 200 million people? Holy crap. So even if 1 million people are willing to pay for this muscle gain drug, it's not enough. But over time, it builds and builds. And all of a sudden, now that we have AI-powered drug discovery, the process to getting, here's the worst thing that can happen to a drug company, short of their drug killing a bunch of people once it's approved, stock price, right? It's terrible. You have a drug that you took a long time to develop. It gets into FDA trials, like phase 1, 2, 3, and it fails them. Like, what are you supposed to do? Like, fellas, we're in the hole, $300 million. We got nothing. It's not like you can, we'll sell to these people, this country. It's just not going for sale anywhere. Imagine that. Like, let's say you're in a t-shirt business. You got some t-shirts that you make. It doesn't cost a lot of money to make t-shirts. And let's say they don't sell all that well. Whatever, like we made $200. We didn't lose $300 million. And so now with AI-powered drug discovery, you can get a drug predicted by AI to like within 99% chance be exactly as effective at what you think it's going to do before it enters the phases of real animal and human trials. And then there's a huge chance that it's just going to like rock star all through those, and then it's not as big of a risk anymore. Pre-AI drug discovery, your chemists better be damn good at guessing the receptor concentration and receptor shape, because if they get it wrong, it's like hundreds of millions, if not more, down the drain. That's not anymore in the next 5 years going to be nearly as big of a problem. It's kind of like this. If you have a couple of days to get a picture to be really beautiful using Photoshop and AI image generation, that you're going to make a pretty picture. But if I give you a crayon and the president of the United States watches you draw a picture and go, you got one shot, go. You're like, oh, and it's wrong. Sucks. You suck. Sorry, you're gone. Holy crap, that's what drug discovery used to be like. You had one shot of making a molecule. As soon as it enters the phases and the trials, you're already losing money if it doesn't just blockbuster everything. So being that that's the current environment, we're going to have this, I predict very confidently, in the late 2020s, especially through the 2030s, we're going to have a drug renaissance where they're going to be able to make drugs that are incredibly targeted at one specific thing. They're going to just start kiboshing entire classes of disease. What that's going to do for people is people can be on an anorectic drug to control their appetite. They can be on an anabolic drug to increase their muscle mass. There are many drugs that they've tested in animals which replicate almost every feature of exercise, but it's just through a pill. Like everything you think an exercising rat would be able to do, that rat can do just because it takes the pill. You can Google this. It's very ubiquitous. Once they get that working in humans, you'll just be taking maybe 3 drugs, and almost everyone you see on the street is going to be in incredibly good shape. That, in addition to that, what happens later is we start thinking, okay, we have DNA, right? Genetic code that makes these proteins, and they do some really good stuff. But we need drugs to make the proteins more effective, or we need drugs to take the blocking proteins out of the mix. Why don't we just change the DNA so that our DNA creates a beautiful body for us? In the probably late 2030s, that's going to be almost inevitable. Obviously, by then you might have cybernetic replacements for stuff, really wacky stuff. But I think that's the direction it's going in, is like exercise is awesome and amazing. And having to watch your diet, having to do exercise takes hours out of your day. Why not just be the person that genetically is amazing and looks like they want anyway and do that? And my last kind of mini point on this is, as long as regulatory agencies approve this, the market incentive is unbelievable. So you see a coworker you haven't seen in a couple of years, she's transformed. You're like, what did you do? She's like, I take 2 pills. You're like, they've got to be crazy, like expensive. Like, nah, they're nominal. You're like, but they're bad for you. Like, no, they're actually really good for me. My health is as good as it's ever been. You're not going to be like, oh, that's just crazy. You're going to be like, I'm going to Google a few things because what the hell is going on? Yeah. Once they have drugs like that that are effective, huge fractions of people will be on them. And then we won't have to exercise as much. And then we can use exercise to connect better with other people, more social exercise, play team sports for fun, hike, do combat sports, all this other great stuff, instead of just like being in the gym and being in pain, which if anyone still wants to continue to do, they absolutely can. But then it'll be like a extra thing you can do versus thing you have to do. So
interesting. You're almost like a fitness optimist or like a health optimist, sort of like they have the techno optimists, you know? And right now
I'm one of those two.
Yeah, me too. It sounds like it. But, I think right now there's sort of this camp that's happening with people not trusting drug companies, especially let's call it post-vaccine and sort of the rollout there. People not trusting food companies because of additives and obesity rates. And so it'll be interesting to see if like the villains could in some ways eventually become the victors, or new victors sort of arise through technology. And I think all these corporations, like you said, are not made up of Machiavellian lizards. They're made up of humans just like us that are working on incentive alignment. And like if we change the incentives where actually they can make more money off of fit people overall and healthy people, and not like length of care, but actually like acute change of health, then that's probably what they'll do. And or a really good competitor will come up and eat their lunch if they just focus on keeping people sick as opposed to making somebody healthy.
That's the thing is, I've never seen any internal documents of any pharmaceutical corporation that explicitly addresses this idea of sick care. Yeah. I've only seen sick care in conspiratorial references. I don't think any executive in their right mind, even if they thought, look, we don't want to cure cancer. That'll be terrible for our profits, which I'll get to in a sec. That's backwards. They're going to be like, well, we want people to still have cancer, but our drugs are going to make you feel better. That way we'll make the real money. If you articulate that to scientists researching the drug, to members of the board, to privileged investors, to business partners, like some company sells you like assaying machines, because you're a pharmaceutical company, you use them to develop drugs. And you're like, yeah, we want the Class B model, not the Class A model. They're like, the Class A model leads to cures. You're like, we're not into cures. If that leaks to the media, you're not done. You're done.
Yeah.
Pfizer, gone. It's never happened. Because those people are generally much smarter than the average person, and they've done that thought experiment in their head. And they go, even if we want to do this crazy thing where you're on purpose keeping people sick, how the hell do you keep that under wraps? Yeah. Bill Clinton was trying to get one BJ in the White House. That got out, right? Like secrets are real hard to keep in a corporation. You can't even like CIA threaten people. Like, we'll kill you. They're not going to kill me. I'm not going to do anything. Yeah. One stray email to the wrong person and you're done. So this idea that corporations intentionally, pharmaceutical corporations are intentionally keeping people sick, is baffling and wrong. And honestly, like I'll make a bit of a further inclination here, probably damaging my character. It's offensive to the people that work at these corporations and to sick people in a certain light. A certain light, it's an interesting hypothesis. It could be true, but it's probably not true. And here's why. Pharmaceutical companies, you go into a pharmaceutical company, you real talk, just real human to human with the researchers, with the CEOs and everything. And you go, where's the cancer cure? They're going to be like, motherfucker, we don't fucking have one, you idiot. Can you imagine what would happen to Pfizer's stock if they had a drug approved that straight up cured cancer? Can you imagine any other drug they made after with the tagline of, from the people that fucking cured cancer? Yeah. We're done.
Yeah.
Goodbye, competition. And it turns out the human body is insanely complex. And but for AI's discovery of how that all works shortly, we're stabbing in the fucking dark. So when people say, like, man, corporations are trying to keep us sick, I wish. There's some evil conspiracy to do that, so there was really these hidden away drugs that made us super healthy. They don't have them, and they're desperately trying to get to them as fast as possible. No, of course, if you have a drug that's a therapeutic, is it in your 100% best interest to completely erase that illness and disease? Maybe not. Can you outright tell your guys at the company to stop working on one? No, holy shit, they'll expose the crap out of you. Just go to New York Times and be like, sick care, it's happening. You're done, bro, you're done. This is like why CEOs do the old... they all keep a gun on the cover. You know how it is. You're a business person. Oh, that's it. Stock price went down. It's so that's just not how it works. And to your point earlier, competition's a motherfucker, man. If Pfizer's not working at it, Novo Nordisk sure as shit is. And there's how many other pharmaceutical companies the world over? And do you think companies in other countries can be influenced by the global corporate? No, hell no. There's some company in Japan that's going to cure cancer. And all the American companies who maybe are even colluding with each other, they're not, but maybe they are, they're not going to be able to control that. Taiwan, you got representatives in Taiwan. Do we have pharmaceutical representatives in every single worthwhile lab in the world? Making sure, guys, remember, no cures, just treatment. The whole thing is fucking insane, Alex Jones level fantasy. It's just not happening. And the real nasty thing is, and at this point I sound, a bit left of center and all this. Well, maybe not. I'm pro-corporate, which is nobody agrees with, right?
You could go next.
Lives, exists. The other thing is this. A lot of people don't even care about the treatment or the cure. Yeah. They're just going to do what they do. Yeah. People talk about like all corporations are like trying to give you food that's bad for you. Do you give a shit? or you just buy Cheetos. There's no lie. There's no grand conspiracy. The corporation's like, we're secretly poisoning. Don't tell anyone. We're like, hey, Cheetos have all these chemicals in them, and they're on sale. Now, if people really gave a shit, they'd stop buying them. But they don't. A lot of people don't. So a lot of this comes back down to like, corporations are just like the people at the market to like unveil their shit. And they're like, do you want any of this? If you say yes, hell yeah, you're signing up for it. It's up to you to be like, well, no, I want healthier stuff. And here's the thing. How many corporations are selling healthy stuff? Oodles. Whole Foods' entire brand is based on healthy stuff. There's all these other players, and it's up to humans individually to choose, like, do I want the stuff that's not so good for my health or otherwise? I wish there was a conspiracy so we could tell the drug manufacturers, like, hey, do better, work on cures. They're trying.
Yeah, I agree.
They're trying desperately.
I don't think I don't know if there's a conspiracy or not, but I think the one item that I do think is real, and we talked about this before, is just incentive alignment. And so some of the problem with corporations overall, and I've seen it firsthand from being in finance, is just the nature of the stock market. It's actually, the stock market is not inherently good or bad, but it is quite short term. And so, if you always have an incentive to have short term alignment as opposed to long term, which is usually what happens in private companies to a bigger degree, that's problematic. And if you have alignment to have maximum profit increase above all else, that's bad. And an interesting example is, for instance, like China. They did this fascinating thing with one of I don't remember what they call it there. Let's call it a mayor. But let's say you're a mayor of a region in China. And they did something that I would have thought was very clever when I first heard it, which is, how do we measure our politicians right now? We have no idea if they're good or bad, right? We go, I like that guy because X, I like that guy because he's not Y, And so that's good or bad. But there's no like track record. There's no scorecard. We have no idea. At least as CEO, you can see their public stock parameters and how have they done one way or the other. There's some metrics. Well, they said, hey, why don't we actually just measure the mayors by GDP growth and employment? Do they employ more people? And do they increase the economic activity? That seems like something politicians should do. And that seems like a great idea. And it was in many ways. And it lifted many areas of China out of poverty. One thing that they didn't think about, though, was with every sort of right oar on a boat, you need a left oar. You got to have a collar, right? And so the right oar was like growth and employment, let's go. Well, the left oar was, whoops, what about environmental impacts? Whoops, what about waste? And so they created like sort of these toxic zones through this. And they eventually had to change it. And their version of the FDA, I think they killed him. He was put up because in China they got a different sort of justice system.
Yeah.
But there was a widespread outbreak, killed a bunch of people, so he went to jail or died. And so I think one of the things that, at least for me, looking on the outside to the pharmaceutical industry or to the health industry overall, is we do have to look at not only one, can the individuals have higher willpower, but two, how are these people being judged if they win or lose? Which kind of takes us to the next point I want to talk to you about, which is teamwork. Like, I actually don't think that you really ever have an employee that's just like, it's very rare where the employee's just shit. They're just awful. They actually want your company to fail. They don't want the job. Sure. That's not that normal. Often it's a couple things. Like, you placed the wrong person in the wrong seat. They have bad incentive alignment. You want them to do something that is actually not in their best interest to do. Or, you have a person that just X grew or changed in the company and they went sort of Y direction. There's not a fit anymore. So I do think there's like, in the world of fitness and health, it seems like there's the same thing. We have some bad incentives overall with the stock market, with perhaps integration between and this isn't just health and fitness, but everything, big companies and government incentive. We always want to protect industries in order to protect our entrenched entrants and to not allow competitors. If we get a chance, we don't want new competitors. So I think I get why people get conspiracy theories, but I'm with you. It's not because they're really brilliant and secretive. It's because there are perverse incentives that if we changed, there would be a different outcome. Then we'd have different perverse incentives, but that's why.
The net balance. No, I think that's great. I think the net balance of incentives is what really matters. Also, it's not a mystery as to how to create a regulatory environment that is super beneficial. There's not a ton of debate in formal economics about the basic outlines of that plan. Like very low levels of very basic regulation, especially ensuring that due process will be followed every single time. And you favor long time horizons, like most of the regulatory structures in Canada, the US, England, most of Western Europe, Japan, Taiwan, they're very good. You have regulatory structures in other countries like Spain, for example, where like it's not entirely clear if they're on your side or not. And the government has so much power to arbitrarily declare this corporation the winner versus not, that self-interested corporations have to play the lobbying game because you can't win without the lobbying game. And so it's really quite clear from an economics perspective how to create intelligent regulation. It's no longer mysterious. It hasn't been mysterious for probably 100 years. But the thing is, when people vote, most people are economically illiterate in the literal sense. And it's worse than that, because most people feel like they know economics, but they know opposite of the truth in many cases. Like, for example, people talk about housing getting expensive. There's actually only one reason housing is expensive: pure regulation. That's good for no one. But it turns out that both landlords and tenants roughly agree on how much housing regulation there should be, and it hurts both of them, but they just feel like it's the right thing, and they're just wrong. So there's all kinds of stuff that democracy is like, the worst way of all to govern, but all of the other ways are much worse. And so hopefully, as people become intelligent over time, more intelligent, more educated, and more libertine in their attitudes of live and let live, as has been happening through history, but kind of up and down here now and again, eventually the corporate regulatory environment gets better and better and better. But there's also a bit of that ethos to bring in to how you run a company. So like at RP, I'll wave the flag a little bit here, but this can be done with any company. You have to have a real good reason of what you're doing that comports with the rest of society. So at RP, our deal is this: we only exist to try to get everyone who wants to become a more fit version of themselves tactics and tools and strategies to do that easier at a very reasonable cost financially and everything else wise to them. If and when there is no more reason for us to exist because everyone is genetically altered and is fit forever, we'll lay it down, we'll cash out, and we'll just not be a company anymore. We're not going to try to be like, oh, you can scuzz away some money somehow. And so corporations are part of a society-wide team to try to make everything better. Yeah. The purpose of a corporation is to supply demand. It is to give people what they want, but also in as long of a time horizon as possible. So if you give people what they want and it hurts them in the medium term, you can run a company like that, and many people do. But if you want to become super, super rich for real, you want a company that outlasts even individuals that run it. So for example, General Motors or Ford, they're older than any living human. Yeah. There's companies in Japan that are 400 or 500 years old. Yeah. If you run a company like that, that company's mission has to be long-term, that our customers that we're supplying are straight up better off because we exist. And so now each corporation is kind of a player in this super big team of society corporations around, and they're all trying to help everyone else and getting money for it, which is great. You benefit, I get rich, I go use my money to benefit, someone else gets rich. Super, super happy circle. So it's all one giant team. You lens down a little bit to the corporation itself, and everyone in the corporation, every worker, has to have a similar mentality of, I am here to try to help the corporation, which means all the other people that work around with me. And because I help them, they get better at doing what they do. They are able to help me better, and we all lift each other up. So this one giant cooperative web at every single level of analysis. And if you come at it from that perspective, a lot of the weird incentives start to fall off, and you start to realize that selfish incentives, short-sighted incentives, bad incentives to do all these other nasty things are often because you just weren't thinking long-term enough. Because people say like, oh, let's make a quick buck. What you going to do after that? Who's going to trust you? No one's going to trust you. You're not going to make a lot of money. How do people who make billions make their money? And by providing real, over the long-term quality, high-value stuff. And if you really think through that as a person who runs a corporation or a person who works for one, you just bring that attitude into work of how can we help our customers and in a way that is super awesome for them, also considers their long-term interests. Because if people realize a company they're doing business with is painstakingly thinking through what's best for them, the customer, in the long term, they ain't never going to leave you, man. They might leave you for someone categorically superior, as well as they should. Because you should quit and go work for that company because they're that much better at pleasing and serving the customer. So that whole web of essentially cooperation, like we're all on the same team. All humans in this world, except for like ISIS or whatever, they just need to be killed off. Well, they're explicitly on a different team because
They're trying to get in there.
everyone,
Like,
right?
not many of them left.
100%.
Not having a great time.
Right. So, yeah, good times ahead for those people in heaven or whatever. But outside of like nasty, insane terrorist people, we're all trying to work together to have a better time on planet Earth.
Yeah.
And that means at every level of analysis, including the family and corporation, the questions we should be asking are, how do we create the most value? How do we provide long-term benefits to everyone so that some level of trust but verify develops? Like if I go to the store and I buy a 20-ounce bottle of Coca-Cola, Coke Zero, which is God's gift to mankind.
Gross.
And say what?
I couldn't do it. No chance.
off this podcast.
Is that your number one?
That's it.
That's your go-to.
Caffeine-free Coke Zero, because I don't do caffeine much.
Caffeine-free Coke Zero. This is the grossest thing I've ever heard of in my life. Do people know about this on the internet about you?
People know about me about this, yeah. But now more people, and that's terrible.
This is a quirk.
It's a quirk.
I like
But
this.
here's the thing.
Okay.
When I go and get that bottle of whatever from PepsiCo or Coca-Cola, I have a very high probability assessment that two things are the case. One, they're not trying to poison me. And two, they're going to try to make a product that I like a lot. They're trying to make me happy. So if you have a corporation which either has internal attitudes in its employees of like, I'm going to get mine, fuck everyone else, not good.
Yeah.
If you have an attitude of, I'm trying to help everyone that I am able to with my skill set to empower them, you got a good thing going. And then it's a matter of, do you have the skill set? So like our CEO at RP, Nick Shaw, he does almost no grandstanding, very few board meetings where he's like, quarter numbers, it's going down. You guys are assholes, trying to blame people. He doesn't do that. What he does is he knows he has a lot of talented people. Engineers are super talented. Everyone in the company is fucking just a baller. And then I'm there also. But in a closet, very dirty closet. I don't even have a light switch. I just do this. The laptop, they say, provides enough light for me to work. And everyone's super talented and everyone is aligned that we're like just fucking trying to help people. We're trying to help people get in more shape, better shape if they want. And because everyone's aligned on that general thing, Nick's job really is just one thing. It's to address various people and divisions in the company to ask them the question, do you have everything you need to be as empowered as possible to help everyone else in the company and the end user? Yeah. That's the only thing he does. And like, it's such a good vibe to have. Like, it's really cool for me to work personally for a company. Like, there's no fucking trick. There's no upside. There's no secret quirk. There's not like, well, when we get to this many users in our app database, then we sell and we fucking cash out. Fuck these people. We don't care about them. It's pure long game. We're just trying to get people in shape. And I think most companies can have that vibe. Like I've read some of your stuff about how you're trying to empower people to invest in local small businesses. Yeah. Like there's not like a get rich quick scheme at the end of the day for you on that.
Sometimes
like,
I wish.
Right?
Like, you know what will make me billions? Laundromats.
Right. It's not like you're like buying the businesses and then nuking them and then installing nuclear reactors instead of schools, but the children are the fuel, that sort of thing. I do have a penchant for that like mega evil rich guy fantasy world, like Captain Planet type of shit.
I like to read it. I like to read it.
It'll be great.
Like that. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But there's no thing like that for you. You're just trying to get people to spend their money in such a way that decades down the line, they can be in their 50s and be like, I'm really glad we listened to Codie because like, fuck man, we have like 3 laundromats that we own. We don't have to work anymore. Exactly. But it's not like you're scuzzing and taking money off the top of the laundromat. You got to stay in business. So laundromat has to be updated all the time, better machines, better customer service, better. Because if your customers are having an amazing experience, that to me is rank 1 of how to run a business. Rank 2 is their amazing experience sustainable and healthy for them in the long term? Will they continue to be repeat buyers? Selfishly, because we want repeat buyers. Also selfishly, for our whole team as a society, we're not trying to hurt people. Which is why, like, you know, if you're like a person that like sells crack on the street, on the one hand, you're kind of doing a good thing, supply and demand. People want crack, you're here to bring them crack. But also crack kind of destroys a lot of people. So you got to be up at night like, fuck, man, am I really doing the right thing? I suppose most crack dealers are not up
Probably
at night.
not, but
Probably up at night, they don't get high in their own supply of those. They're still not doing that. Up at night on crack alone.
I always think if you can run a crack business and make a ton of money, you're probably a really good entrepreneur.
Oh my God.
And like, you should try the straight and narrow.
That is actually an interesting.
You
So
know?
first of all, yes, but also there is a reason why, if you look at real crime, huge fascination of mine is real crime that actually happens versus TV crime, movie crime. Movie crime, they got the 3-piece suit, they're connected to the mayor, they got the slick operation. Real crime is a bunch of fucking idiots tripping over themselves, selling each other out to the FBI every other day.
That's true.
Real criminals that are smart are usually like, wait a minute, I'm expressing diligence and organizational efforts to try to generate profit. I could just make a lot more money and not go to jail if I did that in like computer sales or something. So most criminals are just totally degenerate people with barely anything going for them, because like you'd have to be to choose crime as a way to do things. So most of the best cartel people, you're just not going to get the best to do that, because they're going to be like, what? With my skill set, I just be an accountant. I don't have to worry about getting shot in the middle of the night in my bed while I sleep.
Yeah.
So that's a thing. But that whole corporate idea of starting from first principles of there are humans in the world that need our help, but we can't work for free because then we starve to death. So if we can make a product or service set that really actually helps these people for real, and it occurs at an economic scale that they can afford, but also that lets us do nice things. And I like to crash my private planes for fun. That's a thing. I'll fly it. I don't know how to fly, but who cares, right? Because the pilots jump out first. They have parachutes. I have a parachute. And as soon as it starts to crash, I'm like, and then I go, right? Codie, that costs money. It's $10 million a plane. I'm not made of money. Literally, in a sense, I sort of am at this point. But like, if we are to get super wealthy, we have to find out, how do we please the most number of people in a truly deep way 100%. That they'll continue to come. That is the most secure business model in the entire world. And it also has this awesome thing of like, it has great vibes. Like, you know, there's many corporations or entities, especially back in history, which you could be involved. You can make a lot of money. You just don't feel that good afterwards. And no offense to anyone, because I think a lot of people love gambling in a very safe and healthy way. Most people actually, but like, if you're in the gambling business, like you run a casino, you go home, your wife's like, how was work? You're like, oops, caused a lot of people out of the money today. I mean, what's for breakfast? What's for dinner? It's weird. But if you're really in a corporate setting where you get to truly, truly help people and you get to make some money off it, man, it's just like unbeatable.
It's the best thing ever. Yeah. Plus there's like I think physical fitness is one way for you to become a better human and actually see like Michelangelo getting carved from the marble physically. But
I see you've been looking at my body.
That's right.
My word.
You're pretty big. I think you're bigger than Michelangelo.
I'm like Michelangelo.
You're hairier too.
If Da Vinci was on like acid, a very bad trip.
No. But I think the other part about business that's fascinating is like, it's another amazing way to become a better human. Because where else do you get constant feedback? Do you have other people where you're like rowing in the same direction? Will they actually teach you like for free how to do skills that they have? Because you have incentive alignment. You make money if you're better. They make money if you're better. Like it's one of the few things where it's like, oh, everything is aligned for you to become a better person if you work at a place with really high skilled people.
And you get to help other people at the end of the day. You're not just becoming better for your own ego. It's like, if I get bigger muscles, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
I care, but nobody else does.
Totally
if I make a new version of Coca-Cola that's healthier and safer and tastier.
Nobody's happy, just you.
How dare you?
Okay, I have to ask another question.
Podcast.
I think I am bad at naming things. Contrarian thinking has like a ton of vowels. Nobody can ever say it. When I go on a podcast, they can't spell it. Renaissance periodization. That is a long ass name.
I don't know how to spell it.
Where did you come up with that? What does it mean?
Yeah.
RP strength, good. Strong.
Yes, that's now our formal corporate entity title.
Can't imagine why.
Yeah, strange times.
Yeah.
So there are like sort of three reasons why we named it this.
Yeah.
One reason is that when Mr. Nick Shaw and I got into the fitness business, there was considerably more like lying, charlatanism, Liver King type of shit. And a lot of just really good people were being scammed, and very unscientific times. And we kind of want to contribute to a renaissance, a rebirth of science and fitness. Periodization is the science of making people better at sports and physical things.
That's what that word means?
Periodization, yeah, correct. Yeah, it's the science of making better athletes, essentially. Cool. And so we wanted a renaissance that addressed that. That's kind of cool. The other reason is the Renaissance historically, in the 1700s, blah, 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 that was kind of like the Dark Ages. So like the Greeks and Romans had some cool shit going, science and democracy and shit like that. And then like everyone basically was just literally drunk and in some insane religious extremism. For like 1,000 years, the Dark Ages were kind of bad. Yeah. And the Renaissance was a rebirth of like, hey, like science exists. Let's look into this again. And it radically just completely revolutionized standards of living. It was just this beautiful thing that happened. And so like we saw some very small but nonetheless salient connections to our kind of business model. And probably the biggest reason is there is a hedge fund called Renaissance Technologies. And I didn't know anything about it, but Nick and I trained super wealthy New York people for a while in personal training in New York City. And I was asking them always, because I was super big on economics and learning stuff. And I was asking these people who like ran hedge funds and stuff, like really, before you met someone who has a net worth of $30 million, you don't know how that's going to interact. And it turns out they're just really cool, normal people. Yeah. But I asked them like, oh, how did you guys do in the recession? And I would get the same answer a lot. They're like, well, everyone lost money. And, oh, you can't do stuff like that unless you're Rentec. I'm like, what the hell's Rentec? And one of my guys who owned his own hedge fund, he's fucking, I don't know, 100 millionaire by now. He's like, look it up. And I looked it up. And so James Simons, the guy who founded Rentec, he was like, yeah, like stock picking and guessing is cool, but can't we just use like algorithms and machines and tons of scientists to figure this out? And he decoded the stock market. And the Medallion Fund has a year-on-year 33% return, which, as you know, is fucking insane. And it's just done through like computational modeling. And so that idea that you can just science and math the living shit out of something and help a ton to get clarity on it, we're like, yeah, we're just going to do this to fitness. So we science living shit out of fitness. And now we have a team of super highly qualified software engineers, a ton of PhDs, very Remtech-like, and they make software. They make our Diet Coach app. They make our hypertrophy app, and they make a ton of digital products for us. And these things help people for pennies on the day. And it's like kind of a really miraculous thing I'm super proud of, I guess. But when I found out that Renaissance Technologies was like, yeah, stock picking and guessing is, because mostly fitness up until that point had been like, do this, trust me.
Right.
And we're like, this
this worked for me, so it won't for you, which you never do.
Just on vibes, right? Right. Because,
it's like Brat Summer Fitness.
Exactly. And then we have this new way of doing things, which is more science-based, more calculation-based, more computation-based. And the only reason we do that is because it works better. And it's cool vibes because I love all the sciencey shit. I'm a nerd at heart. And so when I realized what Renaissance Technologies was, when we started naming our company, Mr. Nick Shaw and I together, I was like, Renaissance Periodization, boom. And on the one hand, it's impossible to say or spell. On the other hand, it kind of sticks with you as a quirky name. They were like, those weird people. Also, RP as a shortening of that. You can remember RP.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. And mostly people at the time were naming their companies after themselves and had fitness after themselves and nutrition, like Sanchez Nutrition.
But, no, I never wanted to do that. I already think like my face is on the internet too much. I'm sure you feel the same way too. Oh God, they're like, why do you like a podcast? I'm like, because I'm not talking the whole, like I get to listen to somebody else, and you guys don't have to painfully sit through more of me talking. You know what's the other thing that's cool about Renaissance is, like to our point on team, that now most of the money is the team's money. And so they, instead of going out and having big, huge GP or LPs, investors, people like, me and you who would give them money, increasingly they did so well that they allowed their employees to invest, and the employee pool and the GP pool, the owner pool, became so high that they're some of the largest investors at Renaissance. And now it's very hard if you want Renaissance to take your money. They don't take everybody's money.
There's a reason they don't take everyone's money, because the SEC requires more disclosure about processes if you have external investors.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have external investors, the SEC is like, whatever, you do whatever the fuck you want. Because Rentec has insanely proprietary algorithms and processes. When you get a job there, from what I understand, you sign away a whole hell of a lot of your rights. You're not allowed to talk about shit. And no one's ever leaked. There's been 0 leaks about what they do.
It's true, they're very quiet.
Also, the leak would have to be insanely complex. Of like, most people wouldn't even understand it. Like, oh, here's like the data dump of the like 10-page algorithm we use. But like, I don't understand what the fuck that says. Some other finance people could for sure. And I'm sure people are looking all the time, but that's a big reason. It's also really awesome for them. Like, can you imagine making so much money that people are like, do you want external money? And you're like, we're good.
Oh, it'd be amazing.
Holy shit. Yeah, I think there's James Simons, recently deceased RIP, he died a multi-billionaire. There are countless people at that company that have oodles of money that just keep going up.
I love it. Okay, I want to close out with one thing. You started a new philosophy channel. You have this giant YouTube channel, millions of followers across your social channels. And then you did what, is not that natural, which is you started a philosophy about the mind, health of the mind in some way, instead of health of the body. One thing that I'm obsessing about lately, because I can't quite figure out what's going on, is it seems like we're having a little bit of a mental health tragedy with the youth in this country, and particularly young men. And I was looking at your audience demographics. You have a very large population of young men. Do you understand philosophically, like, what is going on with the youth today? And do you have a take on young men today, how they're thinking and how maybe they could be thinking different if they wanted to change their lives?
Not much. The reason I started the channel at first was because I just saw other people and other news outlets putting out their ideas about what the nature of life was like, the nature of the universe, the purpose of society, consciousness, a lot of stuff about AI. And I just was like, man, there's a lot of people that are wrong and not a lot of people that are right, are very well sought after. There's tons of people saying the right stuff, but normally most people just don't listen to them. And so it started for me as a passion project, and still is, of just like putting my ideas out into long form videos, because I have some pretty decently organized thoughts about a lot of different stuff. And I think my take could be comically wrong, but is often at least somewhat valuable for people to hear. Things like, politics and stuff like that. And what we noticed after a while was the self-help advice, which I also like. We did a bunch of different types of videos. Turns out the self-help advice and our our actual demographic is mostly young men, or mostly men. Those videos seem to do really well. And so I basically had a little bit of a turning point on the channel recently where I'm like, fuck, like, all right, we're a men's advice channel. God damn it. And I'm joking about the goddamn part. It's cool. Yeah. It was not my intention.
Right.
But we're leaning a little bit more into that. We still have all the other topics to cover on the channel, because it just seems to be that people want to see it. So to your point of like, we're having this crisis, perhaps, maybe because a lot of people are looking for kind of advice about how to live life, how to deal with insecurity, how to deal with anxiety, how to plan for the future, meaning, and things like that. I'm not 100% sure on a few things. One, if there even is a crisis, the ability for media to manufacture a crisis is highly, highly impressive. I'll say something that'll get me a lot of hate from a lot of people. Why not? The COVID vaccine situation was largely uncontroversial, insanely effective, and saved probably 20 million lives worldwide. But if you look at the news articles, it was like a poison and a conspiracy, and Fauci somehow is bad. Now, I'm not a huge fan of government overreach. I'm mostly a libertarian in my politics. Maximum freedom in social and economic, I think, is wonderful. But it just was never true that the COVID vaccine was an actually controversial thing. It was for millions and millions of people with no medical training and no ability to appraise statistics. So it's not necessarily true that we even have a mental health crisis. I haven't myself looked deeply into the data. There are certainly some things that are bad. There are certainly some things that are really good. Bullying is down by such an insane fraction that back in the 70s and before, we didn't even really measure it because, like, you just got that ass beat at school. That's just what happened, right? So a lot of our increasing diagnoses of various mental disorders is the first time ever people have the money and time and the wherewithal to give a shit to take their kids to the psychologist. Whereas before, like, back in like pre-1850, you were possessed by demons or insane, and there was a 2 diagnostic categories that they used. And then nobody had ADHD, but think about it. Of course, almost the same number of people had ADHD back then as do today. You were just considered lazy and dumb, or the level of attention we required you to pay at school or whatever was just minor, because after 3 grades of school, you went to the farm, and farm work is tractable for people with ADHD. Nobody gives a shit. Another one is people are being asked a lot how they feel nowadays, and their calibration for how good they're supposed to feel is increasingly higher and higher. Whereas before, like back in the old world, you just had like a grumpy aunt. She's just fucking grumpy. That's just who she was. She was terminally depressed in retrospect, but they didn't do diagnostic criteria. The DSM-5 wasn't around, that whole thing. Now, there absolutely probably are and could be groundswells of increasing anxiety, increasing depression, so on and so forth. For real. We got to be really careful how we assess that, because a lot of times it's just people paying attention to stuff that they didn't before. Here's an interesting example from physical health. Cancer is on the rise, has been for the last 100 years. And people will be like, dude, what in our food supply or whatever is causing cancer? Turns out nothing really, not on aggregate. It turns out that people live to older age so much more now that they live long enough to get cancer. How many 30-year-olds get cancer? It's tragic. It's insanely rare. The average human lifespan used to be 30 back in the day, up until like 100 years ago. And then it was 45, and then it was 60, and now it's like in the 70s and 80s. Yeah, if you get to your 80s, man, you still alive from not anything else killing you, probably going to get you a cancer or two. That's why cancer rates are skyrocketing. So you could be looking at this problem like, oh my God, cancer is eating us all. But in reality, it's actually a side effect of a really beautiful thing that most people get to meet their grandchildren as adults nowadays. That all being the case, really big foundation laid for that one. Yeah, there might be a situation where anxiety is increasing. There are some interesting candidate hypotheses that I think at least worth thinking about. One of them is that for more and more people, life is so preposterously easy and lacking in challenge and real fear-initiating events that our baseline levels of anxiety have no traction or nowhere to grab onto. And we know that if you put a human being in a very visually rich environment, they generally don't hallucinate because like there's stuff to look at. If you put someone in an isolation chamber, it's just a matter of time until they hallucinate and they're seeing shit, but there's nothing there because the human visual system is evolved on a baseline of input. And if it doesn't receive it, it's just going to construct it because it's like, no way. I must be misperceived. There must be things here. And so think about what the baseline human anxiety was through most of human evolution. I mean, like you step on something wrong, your fingernail comes off, you get infected, half your foot is gone, you die, everyone's crying around you as you die by the fire. Typical Tuesday. Saber-toothed tigers were around. We had fucking spears, and that's it. And rudimentary teamwork to try to defend us. Life was absolutely chaos and hell up until multiple industrial revolutions allow us to sit on comfortable chairs with air conditioning. This is all new stuff. But our brains are evolutionarily very old. They're still looking for saber-toothed tigers. If they don't find them, the anxiety is going up. Because here's the thing. After killing a saber-toothed tiger, putting that motherfucker in the fire and ripping steaks off and eating, you got no worries at all. Because the insanely psychotic event of watching your best friend get mauled by the tiger before you killed him is such a huge up that the down is like heroin relaxation. That's the default. But we don't have any more crazy ups like that. Like if you go through a super insane episode, near-death experience, it's known that a lot of people who go through near-death experiences have like a re-clicking of like they love life again, everything tastes better, everything looks better. Like we used to get near-death experiences all the time and actual death experiences all the time. Now, luckily, almost no people die from tragic accidents, etc. Saber-toothed tiger is not a problem anymore, although Texas, there's crazy-ass animals around here, who knows? Because our lives are so easy, I think we're hallucinating anxiety. And that's not to say that it's like hallucination, it's not really there. It's really there in your head, and that's the only thing that matters. So I think maybe some of the solution to the problem of a lot of anxiety from life being too good is to make your life focused and purposefully more difficult. You're not going to get a ton of anxiety if you train like a fucking animal, if your job is physical, or if your job is mental, but you're poring over documents and details and meetings. You're too fucking busy to be anxious, and you're too drained. And there's lots of fight or flight at work. The third quarter numbers came in. They're not good. The CEO's on the phone. Oh. When you get home and you spend time with your kids or whatever on the weekends, you're just a weed puff smoke away from being just totally zen because you're getting that chaos somewhere. You don't have to hallucinate it. But as life becomes very easy for all of us, yeah, we might have to lean back into working extra hard or training extra hard. Getting into some crazy jiu-jitsu is a great hobby because people try to kill you for an hour at a time every day. After that, like people walk out of the jiu-jitsu studio, every single one of them is zero fucking anxiety because like you just tried to save your life for an hour. You ain't got nothing left. You're too physically tired and you're emotionally so drained. Anxiety is just not an option. Many of the people who are anxious are precisely the people for whom life is the easiest. There's not like a crazy anxiety thing in like 50-year-old CEOs. It's not happening. Who's getting anxiety? 14 to 18-year-old teens. Cody, you ever been around 14 to 18-year-old teens nowadays? Everything they could ever want is one click away. And that's it. No problems. And the problem is like, oh, people on social media didn't follow me when I wanted to follow them. That is not sufficient enough to get you really going, to reduce your anxiety because it's some crazy event. That's a big deal. And I think that until we genetically re-engineer our brains or pharmacologically take drugs to lower that base rate of anxiety, we're just going to keep basically looking back into the Pleistocene era and being like, fuck, there's got to be woolly mammoths coming soon, man. And you're just anxious because everything's too good to continue. Another way to see it is this. Anytime in evolutionary time you had a long string of good stuff happen, great harvest, maybe, but this is even farming is a new invention. Just you found some good food, you killed a big mammoth. It's just a matter of time until shit hits the fan again. Winter comes, half your fucking tribe dies. It's a regular thing, chaos. So now when people get a really good time going, if that time lasts too long, your internal sensor for, hey, I got to be aware because shit's going to get fucked up real soon, it starts to go up. And I think that might be a part of anxiety. That's at least one of the more compelling hypotheses I've heard so far.
So good. Mike Israetel, Renaissance Periodization, nailed it. RP Strength on all the socials. And I'm going to subscribe to the Philosophy channel. I love the way your brain works. Thank you so much for being here today.
It's an honor to be here with you. Thank you so much for having me.
What do you see in founders who are winners or losers?
I borrowed this one from Jeff Bezos. He said, I only look for one thing, determinism that's unbridled.
Bill Gurley is a legendary venture capitalist, early investor in Uber, DoorDash, Asana, eBay, Snap. And today we're breaking down who will actually survive in an AI-dominated world and the skill stack that makes you anti-fragile instead of obsolete. I kind of want to go to AI.
I think AI is a superpower. There's never been a better time in the history of the world. It's insane, the opportunity that's out there for you. Kobe Bryant, after winning his 4th championship, asked if he could come to Houston to learn Hakeem's footwork in the post. It's a powerful statement that someone with that much success was trying to find an area where they could improve. I ask anyone who's chasing any career, are you like that?
The question I have for you is what do you see in founders who are winners or losers?
One element of being a great founder, and we're talking about people that can not just start a small company, but one that can grow it into a much bigger company. One element is salesmanship. And it's not something that you hear a lot of people talk about, but in order to grow a company to a very large size, obviously you have to sell customers, but you also have to sell employees. And you have to sell partnerships, and you have to sell incremental investors, and you're just out, and you own the brand of the company, which you're likely promoting ad nauseum. And if you're not good at that, it'll be very difficult to outrun the other company, that may be competing for that. So that's one. It took me probably my entire 25 years to come to terms with this, but I think you really need to be great at product. Like you just have to be. And I used to try and convince myself that wasn't true. And I learned the lesson the hard way a couple of times. And the really great founders have this instinct, not just for the best practices for products today, but where those are going to go when the new technologies allow them to shift to the next place. And that really matters. Many great startups have a go-to-market advantage. They've figured out some hack to get to customers faster. And so that's another element that could be important. And then I borrowed this one from Jeff Bezos. I asked him once, how in the world do you do so many amazing angel investments while you're running Amazon? And he said, I only look for one thing, which is that this person's going to go do this thing they claim they want to go do come hell or high water. Like whether I'm involved or not, like this kind of determinism that's unbridled. Like it's just, there's nothing that's going to stop me from doing this. And he has a way of sensing that. So that's another good tip, perhaps.
Do you have a way of sensing if somebody is just going to stay in it until they either do it or they break them?
There's a couple of things you can look for. Like, did they fall into it opportunistically? Because then it might not be there, and some people, I remember when we did the first Uber investment, Travis, his first couple of companies, one of them I think ended up in bankruptcy. The other one, they got money back, but it was pretty obvious he hadn't touched the brass ring and really, really, really wanted to. And he could sense that this thing was going to work way bigger than the first two he was on. And I could just tell he wasn't going to not lean in as hard as he possibly could. You could feel it.
Yeah, it's funny. We have a founder. I won't say his name, but he's a stud. But he now has a company. It's worth multiple $1 billion. And
And we jokingly say he's either going to be a trillionaire or he's going to go to prison. Because like
He's so determined.
Yeah, there's just no way. And
Josh Wolf of Lux Capital has a saying, chips on shoulders, put chips in pockets.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Just this, and that it's a little bit of a pivot from the like unbridled determinism, but kind of this like the chip on a shoulder thing is another example of that determinism. Like I got something to prove. I really have something to prove.
Yeah. What is the opposite of this? Like you had a blog post I love.
And by the way, a lot of that stuff I mentioned, like nowhere in there did I mention the idea, like or the specific business. And we've seen incredible businesses be built by great founders who have pivoted 180 degrees from the original idea.
Yeah.
Discord's that way, for example. And Slack was famously that way. So the person matters more than the concept.
How did they know when to give up on Discord, for answer? How do you know when to give up on an idea?
I think you can reach a point where none of the math works. The team that built Nextdoor originally had built a website for sports enthusiasts, and it was out there. It had 1 million users, but based on ad rates and everything and the growth rate, it needed to be 100x bigger, and that looked impossible. And you tilt and tilt and tilt and tilt. Yeah.
So you don't want to get tied to the idea. You want to get tied to an outcome. Like
I was fortunate to be at a place at Benchmark Capital where we were, and they still are, competing to be the best in the business. Mm-hmm. And the game's a little different at that level because you're looking for the grand slam home run outcomes. And you're not, it's not a game of IRR. It's not a game of, it's more like a mid-market PE where you need, you can only have one failure. The winners are so big at that level, you could have 80% of your portfolio fail. So it's a game that's a lot riskier and you're searching for the really big outcomes. So some of the decision-making's different.
Yeah, it's really important to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need to have, because most people don't want that life. Most people actually want, and I imagine it's pretty miserable. I mean, we run a couple pretty big companies from our standards, and it ain't easy.
I've shared 2 thoughts with founders that relate to what you're saying. One, I had the unfortunate position of telling founders when they achieve some level of success that it only gets harder going up, and like it just keeps getting harder. And if you think growing $100 million company is hard, try growing $1 billion company. And the expectations go up, and the number of people whose livelihood are counting on you, the employee base goes up, and it just gets harder. And the only solace I have for them is I always tell them, if you're going to look up the ladder, make sure you look down the ladder. It's just like, make sure you celebrate how far you've moved. Because I talk to a lot of people who are probably in the top 2 percentile of all startups, and they're pretty stressed about not being, above themselves. And the other thing I tell a lot of founders, which I think may really relate with your audience, is, venture capital, it may not be a good fit for your business. And very oftentimes in venture capital, especially if you're partnering with a firm like I just described, where they're trying to have these massive outcomes, a Series A quickly becomes a Series B, quickly becomes a Series C. And before you know it, the founder's equity is down around 10% or lower. And, if you can self-fund your business, you can exit at $30 to $50 million and make lifetime wealth. But if you start down this path and get down to 10%, you now need to sell for $500 million to get that same outcome, which is a lot harder to achieve. And so, just make sure that that's what you need, and make sure that that's what you want. I actually think that there are far more companies that want to do tuck-in $30 to $50 million acquisitions than want to do $500 million. Like it's probably 100x easier to get that type of deal done.
It's a really good point. You kind of have had this history of saying some of the hard things that's not consensus in VC continuously.
Yeah.
I was going through your old blog that, you've had for what, 30 years? Last
Yeah.
couple of years, maybe a little bit less, but there were
Definitely less.
there were like two blog posts I really, really loved. And one I remember when it came out was, it was actually about red flags in companies. And
Yeah.
it came out like 2 weeks after FTX, basically. So it was like incredible timing. And you basically talked about all the reasons why. And I had like, God, I have a quote in here from it that I just want to read. It was, I have over 40 years of legal and restructuring experience, never in my career seen such a complete failure of corporate controls and such a complete absence of trustworthy financial information as occurred here. And so what I would love to know from you is like, what are the biggest red flags in business? And what did you see in that deal that you were like, guys, how did you miss this?
Well, by the way, it's tricky because I just told you that there are firms out there that want to find the biggest grand slam home runs they possibly can. And so the best way to make sure you have exposure to as many of those as you can is to be and look as founder friendly as you possibly can. And so if you combine hyper competition at the investor level, from the time I entered the venture career to the time I left, competition only went in one direction. It increased, and it's more competitive today than ever. And if you have that hyper competition, and if the best way to ingratiate yourself to a founder and potentially get a new deal is to be as friendly as possible, you create a scenario where this is very likely to happen, like super likely to happen. And so I don't know that there's a way around it because the option is like, I think that the competitive level is so high that you're going to test this boundary constantly. Like you're just going to test the boundary. And some of the best founders are very determined. We use the word deterministic and aren't looking for constraints. And so it's kind of ripe for this to happen, you know.
That's true.
But it gets rationalized, you know. And so I was actually at a dinner with some of the FTX investors about 2 months before it blew up, and I said, and I asked all the questions that are in the red flags, and they were aware of all of those risks, but you know, didn't have a way to manage it.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, on the other end of the spectrum.
But it's okay. I mean, look, it's you know, everyone's wearing their, what would you say, big boy underwear in this game. And so
You hope.
not to, I hope that's not gender biased, but like, this is one of the reasons why there's a number of people that want to push to have everyday retail investors be able to invest in these types of companies. And this is one of the reasons why I'm somewhat like cynical about that idea, because the people that are doing this kind of know the risks they're taking, but I'm not sure that everyone would understand, including the failure rate issue. You know, these pass the hat SPVs that are happening everywhere, special purpose vehicles. You're probably aware of this. Like people are going to get burned. Like,
yeah.
big
Well, why
time.
don't you explain a special purpose vehicle and how somebody might say they invested in SpaceX, but you know, ridiculous fees and at a wild valuation.
So let me back up just a minute, because I think it's important to frame it. In a venture capital fund, so this is a fund that limited partners are going to invest in, which are traditionally university endowments, fellowships, that kind of thing, foundations. That venture capital firm will have an agreement with these investors that includes something called a look back. And what the look back says is, if you take money from the first 3 winners and then don't return anything else, a bunch of losers, you owe us back what was in those losers. So there's an investment agreement that kind of looks at the fund and the portfolio holistically. An SPV, special purpose vehicle, is when a investor is representing a group of other investors for a single investment, and it doesn't have a look back, and there's no portfolio. And so they'll take fees, not always, but sometimes they'll take management fees and a rake, some form of carry, on this single investment. And if any VC could strike a deal with their LPs where every single investment was a SPV, they would do it. But they don't do it. And that's kind of the point. And there's a concept in gambling in Vegas called a free roll. And I often think about, from the GP's perspective, the person underwriting the SPV, the one trying to talk you into investing in it, I think they got a free roll. Because if it works, they make money. If it doesn't work and they got fees, they still make money. And they got nothing in it. Like, and so the only way I would ever consider an SPV is if the underwriter is putting 50% of the money in or more, but they're probably not at all. And so, and these have become particularly popular in the last year or two. And I would just, like, it's funny, this whole AI thing, like the ups and downs that have happened. The funny thing is the best bet all along has just been the index, like the S&P index, because you were exposed to AI because NVIDIA became such a large part of it.
Or now Apple with hardware.
Yeah, you had all these big companies that were already overweighted in the index that were AI exposed. And here now, where we have the fear of AI starting to cause valuations to crumble, the S&P has performed pretty well. And if you're sitting there holding a basket of like high tech new companies, you got wiped out in the past 3 months.
I was looking at the numbers like a couple days ago, and, we've seen massive January layoffs. We've seen like some of the worst jobs numbers since 2009. We've seen like decreasing non-farm payroll numbers since basically 2022. We've seen like, decrease in overall job creation in the US.
Yeah.
And so I think people right now are saying, oh my God,
They are.
Forget doing what I want for a living. Am I going to have a job?
Yes.
And you have such a history with these tech companies. Like, one, I guess I would say, how could somebody find a career right now that is safe? Is there a way even?
So if you look before AI, there was a Gallup poll in 2023, and it's only 23% of people identified as engaging and satisfied at work. 59% did not. And the other 19 are like actively unhappy at work. And I think that's interesting, and I look at what we've done with the traditional career path, and we've created this conveyor belt from, it starts really early. I think it starts about 6th grade, where parents start worrying about their kids' college application. And Jonathan Haidt calls it the resume arms race. And we just start packing it full of extra credit classes and cello lessons and lacrosse lessons and all this stuff. And, when I was younger, like, our parents would let us like roam the city for days and not know where we were. It was just a totally different time. But these kids are so pushed into this pressure cooker. And then they get into college and then you got to get a job. And I think well-intentioned parents are pushing kids towards these safe jobs. And I've raised 3 children, and I can tell you the intuition to do that is really strong. Mm-hmm. It's just like built into your DNA. I don't think it's no malintent whatsoever. You just want them to be okay. You want them to be fine. And so over the past 30 years, that's been, make them a banker, make them a computer scientist, make them a consultant. And these jobs happen to be under AI threat. But I think people weren't happy before that. And I'd like to, if you'd allow me, because I think the AI thing is super interesting, I'd like to juxtapose 2 things for you. One, if you are accepting this kind of conveyor belt process where you're going to go exactly in line with how you're told, how everybody else is doing it. You're going to go be a computer scientist at the best school. You're going to interview with the companies that come there. So you're you're doing what you're told, and you're following where they've told you to go. I think those people, AI is a huge threat, because they're like, they don't really know why they're there. They just showed up and they were told to do this, and there's 100 other people around them that look just like them, and they're all interviewing for the same job, and they're not differentiated, and it's scary as all get out. Now, I want to juxtapose that with, let's say you're somebody that has an immense passion for something that's very bespoke, where they're out running in their own lane and trying chart their own course. For that individual, is AI a threat or is it a jetpack? I actually think it's a jetpack because now I can go learn about anything I want. I can go study about anything I want. It's never been easier to learn faster because of this tool called AI. I can build things with less people. I can write code. I can do videos. And so if you're your own champion and you're in your own lane, I think AI is a superpower. But it's an interesting juxtaposition, right? Like, is it a threat or is it a help? And I think it's kind of dependent on the game you're playing.
I actually haven't thought about it that way, but it makes all the sense in the world. You can almost feel the people who are excited by AI because they want to practically apply it right now, immediately to something.
Yeah.
And the people who just think, oh, Lord, I used to do X task. Now somebody else is going to do the task.
Right. There's a funny story that I think is relevant, which I think it was Bjorn Borg. There was a tennis player who retired very early. I think it was Bjorn Borg. And when he retired was the kind of final years of the wooden tennis racket. And he decided to make a comeback. I hope it was him. I hope I got the name right. And about 5 years later, and everyone had switched to these big graphite rackets, and he refused to use one because he was used to the tool he had, and he got obliterated. Like, wasn't even close. And, there are many anthropologists that have studied the fact that humans evolve with their tools. And so you could, who's more fit, someone in Naked and Afraid or someone, with a bulldozer and a calculator and a computer. Like, it's pretty obvious, right? And this tool has come along very quickly, AI, and it has capabilities that really matter to make a human more fit, more kind of evolutionarily fit. And if you don't lean into it and figure out how it can most impact the career you're in, you're more likely to be susceptible to being displaced.
Yeah.
Like, the best anecdote is to run at it, like to play with it all the time.
Yeah. I liked that line you have. I think you had a line basically like that, like, you have to become the most aggressive user of AI in your field, run at it, because that's how you keep evolving.
No doubt.
Which I love. Well, so
and by the way, that'll be true of the next disruptive technology as well.
This doesn't feel like you've seen every technology that, has probably felt this way to the masses over the last 30 years. Does this feel different to you?
It feels a little different, I think, because it threatens white collar workers so fast. Like, I think a lot of the ways before, so, you go way back to just automation in factories and the agriculture, what happened to agriculture with the rise of machines and look, I think in the U.S. used to be 98% agriculture at the top, and it's like less than 2% now. So we've survived these things, like, they happen, but this one's unique, I think. And that's why it's created so much anxiety.
I love Bill's takes on how to find our best careers because I just read this crazy statistic that by 2030, up to 30% of current jobs could be automated. McKinsey says as many as 375 million workers may need to switch occupations. And Goldman says AI could impact 300 million full-time roles. Here's what no one wants to admit. It's not the robots that win, it's the owners of attention. So when distribution gets automated, when content gets generated, when noise goes infinite, the scarce asset isn't actually skill, it's taste and audience. If you don't own your audience, you rent your income, and rent goes up. That's why I've been thinking a lot about email lately. Not the boring kind, the kind that turns ideas into movements, which brings me to something I've been using behind the scenes, Beehive. Beehive is this all-in-one platform for building, growing, making money on your newsletter. But here's what actually matters. It's built for people who already create. So you can publish, you can grow with built-in referral tools and recommendations, you can monetize from day one, like ads, subscriptions, boosts, without stitching together 5 different tools. You own the audience. No algorithms deciding whether your work gets seen and whether those closest to you actually hear from you. Solo creators are turning newsletters into 6- and 7-figure businesses. I turned mine into, some ways you could say, a 9-figure business. If AI is going to commoditize content, then the move is obvious. Build a list. Own the relationship. If you're already creating or you know you should be, you can actually go to beehiiv.com. I asked them for a code for us. It's BEEHIIV.com. And then you can use code CODIE30 for 30% off for 3 months. I don't think we should wait for the future. We should own something.
What are the skills you need to have to win in the age of AI in your mind?
Immense curiosity, because you have to play with this thing. And you've got to get over the skepticism. I've met some really intelligent people. Some of the top academics that I happen to have relationships with, who are just doubters. You know, they get it to hallucinate once, and then they run around and tell everybody about how it gave them the wrong answer. And boy, that's dangerous. Like, it's just so dangerous to walk around being skeptical in that way.
Yeah.
I think it's far too powerful to be that way. But I see it. I see it a lot.
Yeah, Greg Brockman, I think, had a tweet today that I liked, which is said that like taste is now a real skill. And I feel that a little bit. I saw this graph. I should have brought it for you that I thought was really good. But it was basically like a little, fourplex. And in the bottom, it was like bad judgment, good judgment, and then non-AI use, AI use, or high AI use. And and then it said basically if you have bad judgment and AI use, slop cannon, you create a lot of really bad things. Good judgment, lot of AI use, sort of superhuman. You know, you create incredible things. Yeah. And I've been thinking about that lately because I felt it. We did this job posting, Bill, and I was like, we're hiring sort of vibe coders. We're hiring them in every single department. We're hiring engineers as well, but we already have engineers that we've been hiring. I've never hired this person. It's just like AI curious. And we get thousands of applications for it, right? But then as I'm going through it, I'm like, wow, people have built a lot of stuff, but a lot of it is a questionable choice of what you are building and how and why. And that product is actually really terrible from a UI perspective, right? Yeah. So I'd be curious for you, like in this world, it does seem like you have to really have taste about what you build and why too. Do you think that's true? And if so, how do you tell if somebody has it or not?
Yeah, I mean, it may be that both relationships and taste become even more important because of the volume of information that can be created could create more noise. One thing I would really tell people, and you've probably been down this path yourself, but like the more you use AI, the more you understand and intuitively have a feel for what it's capable of. And then the more you push it and into places you might not have thought about before. Yeah. And I'm surprised. I was surprised yesterday, like, oh, wow. It figured that out. Yeah. And if you're not playing with it every day, not only do you not know what it's capable of, but you're not developing your skills to get it to be as good as it can possibly be for you. Like there is an element, people use the phrase prompt engineering before, but I think it's more than that. I think it's having awareness of when it might help you and knowing you can go to it more often.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I guess it's almost like you'll see an expert with all the ways they know how to utilize a tool, any type of tool.
No doubt. And the stuff that came out in the past 2 weeks, which I haven't played with yet, or even more of that.
That's my existential
I haven't
drag.
built a claw bite yet, but probably should.
My president just did, and he came in wild-eyed yesterday. He's like, I've been working on it for the 4th day. I didn't sleep last night. I'm like,
I love that.
But me too. And
I
you know
love
what?
that.
He's the former president of Mr. Beast. He's a super successful guy. He makes a ton of money. He's built a lot of companies. Yeah. And yet even he is so curious about what's happening.
Yeah, and you were asking about the elements of a great founder, like that part's in there. They can't stand, they have immense FOMO about new technologies. That's
a great line. Chris Sacca had said something really interesting about you, totally off the AI subject. But Chris Sacca said that when you are in a meeting, you will be sitting there silent for most of the meeting. And then you'll say like 10 poignant words that will change the trajectory of the entire meeting. And you're a humble guy and you didn't even want to write like a memoir. You wanted to write something to help people. So I'm sure you hear that quote and you're like, whatever, Chris. But
no, that's not my reaction. Go ahead and finish the question.
But my question is like, you're in rooms with these power players all over the world. You're in rooms with other big investors, all your partners at Benchmark. How do you make your words count? How do you get heard by people?
By the way, that thing Chris described is a evolved skill, not something that came naturally. And if you read, the stories of the elders, the great early venture capitalists, you'll find a mention of that precise technique. And I probably read those early on, and it's hard. Like, it's super hard. Like the human wants to blurt out the best answer first. And there's this sales tool, Gong, that they use to record salespeople. And then I wish every board meeting had a Gong recorder and then immediately posted a pie chart of who talked the most. I wish. I've never said that out loud before.
That's a great feature.
But I would love to see that, because I think it would encourage more people to do what you just described. And it's super effective. It's just very hard to do. It's very hard to bite your tongue. And the other benefit of waiting till the end is you're going to have more information. You're going to synthesize, while you prepare to say what you're going to say. And it's going to be more efficient, obviously, if you say less. It turns out it's also more impactful for the reasons you just described.
Yeah, well, we were talking about Rick Rubin before we started.
Yeah.
And I'm obsessed with this one line of his, which is that he is not a producer, he's a reducer.
Yeah.
He's always trying to get it down to the core.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of you in this way in meetings. And I know you said you spent time with Rick. What did you take away from him? Was there a story that you were like, God, this is so good, I want to go home and tell my wife?
I was kind of on pins and needles going in, because I hold Rick in this really special place in my brain because of how unique an individual he is and how different he is. And I'm a huge music fan, and all the different genres he's touched and made magic with. It's clear there's something special there. And then you read his book; it's not written like any other book that's ever been written. It's Yoda-esque. It's really small words put together that are profound, but not obvious in how to interpret. And, some people have told me they've read Rick's book like a fourth time. Like, I think it may need that, like, to soak in. So I was so thrilled to be there. And, I'd watched the documentary about the studio. There's a 4-part documentary. And so just being there was, super special to me. Yeah. And I was so in awe. Maybe the whole thing felt like the answer to your question was every single second of being around him. I'm that much of a fanboy, but it was great. He was so prepared. When I was writing the book, I was very curious why I did the podcast, because here's a guy that's remarkably successful in his field, probably arguably the best of all time, but certainly top 5 producer of all time. And he does a podcast, not just with music people or even Hollywood. It's much broader than that. And I remember listening to him talk to Jay Bhattacharya, and I'm like, this is insane. Like this is amazing. And I asked him, why do you do it? And he said it's all about curiosity, like just scratching itches and learning as a hobby. And I think that's profound. Like, I really do. I think that the best and the brightest, there's a recent podcast, I forget who did it with him, with Toby of Shopify. And if Toby talks, anywhere publicly, I consume it within 24 hours. I just find him so wonderful and so fascinating. And in this particular one, someone asked him, like, what's the easiest life hack of all? And he said, read. Like, read.